of our session 1 on day 3 of FDP on IoT security or Internet of Things security has joined us. So we are very much thankful to ma'am for accepting our invitation. And I am also privileged to host today's session as my teacher, as the speaker of this program. So thank you once again on behalf of the organizing committee. So this is the FDP program jointly organized by Computer Science and Engineering Department, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad University of Technology, West Bengal, along with Islamic University of Science and Technology, Jammu and Kashmir. And this program is supported by TechIP of our university. So we are on day 3, and first session will be delivered by Professor Shormishta Niyogi ma'am. So before I start formally, ma'am, will you please test the screen sharing option?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Can you see it?
Yeah, it is coming, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
it is
Thank you.
coming. Okay. So all the participants, so we are about to start the session 1 of day 3. And also ma'am, one of the coordinators of this program, Dr. Shoikat Basu, is also present in today's session now.
Nice.
So
Good.
Good
and
afternoon, ma'am. Heartily welcome you to the session.
Yeah. Good afternoon to everybody, and thanks all of you for inviting me to this FDP.
Thank you, ma'am. So participants are joining, and just they will be settling down within 1 or 2 minutes. So before ma'am starts her session, I'm just giving a very short introduction of her. Shormishta Niyogi is professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Jadavpur University, Kolkata, India. She received her PhD degree in engineering and master's degree and bachelor in computer science and engineering degree from Jadavpur University, Kolkata, India. She is a senior member of IEEE and IEEE Computer Society. She has publications in reputed international journals and proceedings of international conferences. She has co-authored 4 books. Dr. Niyogi is member of Government of India Mirror Committee for Joint Technical Committee JTC1. Dr. Niyogi's research interests are in areas of fault tolerance in distributed systems, reliability and security in wireless and mobile systems, security and privacy, and wireless sensor networks. Over to ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So shall we start now, or shall we wait?
Ma'am, we can
For
start.
okay.
Whatever.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Biswas, and of course my too. And I welcome all the participants in today's FDP, this session, and also the participants in the entire FDP. And I would like to share with you some of the experiences that I have gathered over the years by, of course, by studying literatures and other things, and of course, sometimes implementing also, and in which there are so many research scholars. There were also, and there are now research scholars and other master's degree students to help me a lot. So I would like to acknowledge all of them. And it's really hard to take all of their names. And today I specifically extend my heartiest, thanks to the team, MAKAUT team, who is doing, given their immense responsibilities towards organizing this FDP. And so with, I think now it's high time that we start the presentation, and I don't know how long I can continue, but I shall try to do my best. So
Yes,
shall I share my screen again? Like that,
yes.
huh? Okay. Yes, I hope it's visible to everybody.
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Okay. Okay, thank you all again. So as this FDP is on IoT security, just for your kind information, may I put my video off so that I can gain the entire data bandwidth that I can have. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
It's good.
okay. So can you still see my screen?
Yes, it's
Yes, ma'am.
visible.
Okay. Because I can't understand whether it is visible or not. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about IoT data security challenges. As you have understood from what my kind introduction that Dr. Bishash gave, that nowadays I am into security field research area, working on the security field, and it extends to big data, cloud computing, building secure routing protocols for WSNs, and so on and so forth. Hence, I thought that why don't we give some take some insights into the IoT data, because it's a very, very important, offshoot for the entire IoT research area. And that too, I have chosen, therefore, the IoT data security and the challenges that it will throw against the researchers and how the researchers may be able to face it. So here I shall discuss not only some challenges, but also I shall try to give some ideas about the possible solutions that we can take. So we may go around like this. IoT. So what is IoT? About the devices and how the data are generated and how they are connected, and then how security can be interlinked with this IoT, and therefore the overall impression of IoT security, the challenges and risks involved. And then you are finding that I have an agenda titled Big Data Security Framework. Why big data? That I will also come to in my talk. And then, of course, I will show you all the references that I have used, and maybe probably some more also, which I may have maybe my oversight, I have not included them, but there are many websites and books that I have acknowledged. I want to acknowledge, I wish to acknowledge always. So as this FDP is about IoT, so I'm very sure by now, and it is the third day, so you are very, very well aware of what IoT is, what it is made up of, and why it has now become a buzzword, and so long, and so on. I can go on and on like that. Okay, so I'm not going into the details of what is IoT and what it would be made up of. So I'm simply stating on the facts that would be crucial to, see in relevance with IoT data. So as we all know, this is a long hyped thing, Internet of Things, and now it's really starting to take some shape. And basically, this Internet of Things, as you know, that it has intelligent devices, wearables, and not only this, they have to be connected to also, okay? So that they have to be connected to make our lives easier, okay? So make our lives easier does not always mean that they will really make our life very, very easy. But of course, you have to be technologically aware of using and utilizing these connected items such that it can make your life easier. So the examples may range from smart home. Okay. So what can be an example that can automatically adjust the room temperature or make your coffee machine ready, even if you are away and actually you are arriving home. And so this is the example, some scenarios from smart home. 2, smart factory monitoring production lines. Okay. And that too, industrial machines can be linked to industrial machines. So that means monitoring of production lines. That means to find out whether the production lines are going, in the way, desirable manner, whether there is any fault or any, say, delay in some lines, so that it is actually producing a cumulative delay. So monitoring of such lines is very, very crucial as to monitoring the health of the industrial machines. So now, how we can say that yes, data is associated with such types of, say, connected devices and things and other. So connected to the internet. Now, since this is the internet of things, so we want all these things to be connected to some form of the internet. Okay. And this is not only we are talking about, say, internet of our computers, internet of our laptops, systems. Yes, these are also systems, but what type of systems? They may be very, very small systems also, such that they are called things, and which were not at all intelligent until, say, a few years back. But now we have been able to make them intelligent. So these things are able to share data with one another. So IoT applications share data with whom? Some IoT applications, some connected devices, industrial machines among one another, and so on. So what does it actually mean? Connected devices, that means the example that I was giving for smart home, that means even before you come home, you can adjust your room temperature, you can have your coffee machine ready. That means somehow the data that you are nearby your home has reached these particular devices, and that enables those devices to be ready for you when you get home. Okay, so that means they have to some way share data with one another. So that's what I mean over here. As we talk about smartphones, because you know that nowadays we have smartphones, tablets, watches, as well as glasses and other connected objects, it's important that these so-called things, these were all things. Now, even before some days, okay, watches and glasses and other. So these things, how will they share data? Of course, they have to have some, say, you can say materials or some particular objects in them which will be able to provide the data. So they will be packed with sensors, and not only maybe a single sensor, maybe lots and lots of sensors even in one single thing. So these built-in sensors will have some, they will somehow collect data either from the application, from the environment, or from the device on which these sensors are built in. From some source, these sensors will be able to collect data. And so what will they do after collecting the data? So they will try to process it. Whether all these devices will process the data or only one device will process it. So these all depend upon the application and its requirement. So just now we are not going into these details, but the built-in sensors are used for any. That's why we have stressed on this point that they will be used for any or some or all of the following purposes. That means collection of data, processing it, and send it to other connected thing. And why send it? Obviously, for either for further processing or for taking some action, some decision, like that. Okay. And how will this data go from one device to the another if you want to send it? So IoT connected devices communicate via networks and or as well as cloud-based platforms, but connected to this Internet of Things. That means this network will be formed of these things, and Internet of Things, we understand that means Internet working of different Internet of Things. So they together of all of them will form this Internet of Things, and they have to they have to communicate via some networks or some common cloud platform or something like this. So who will be the users? Okay, though now that everywhere we are hearing this jargon as Internet of Things. So, but who will be the users? Users will be, I mean, there will be a long list of users. So industries are using IoT for a variety of purposes. Okay. For example, improving system qualities in real time. Now this is important. That means real time system qualities. So what we are thinking that whenever some data will be generated from some say, device or some connected thing, maybe it will come over to some place where it can be say, associated with some other data, and then some meaningful observation may come out of it. So sometimes it will be real time, sometimes it may not be real time too. But real time applications are one of the important, I mean, offshoots of this IoT. So streamline the operations, of course, after getting some decision or some meaningful extraction of data, and then operations can be streamlined, exploit, and discover innovative ways to operate digitally. Because many players are new in this field, in this digital field. So they have to find out innovative ways to operate digitally. So the industries may be manufacturing, retail, healthcare, transportation and logistics, energy, and this list may go on and on. So here are some few statistics. Oh, just the number of objects, okay? So International Data Corporation estimates that by 2025, there will be 41.6 billion connected things. And the estimated data generation by all these connected things will be such a huge number of bytes that they have gone to zettabytes. Okay, and the compound annual growth as projected over this time frame 2018 to 2025, 28.7%, and it is generally attributed to the amount of data created by these connected IoT devices. So you understand that whatever be the contribution of the data growth by other ways of applications, this uh, connect, connected IoT devices themselves will be giving about 28.7% of the compound annual growth rate during this period. So you understand quite easily that how large this data growth will be and in what rate also it will be growing, not only the volume but also the rate at which it will be growing. And I know by now you know a lot of example IoT devices. So you have Apple Watch, you have Samsung SIM band, and the types of sensors that will be embedded, maybe motion sensors, biometric sensors, health sensors that are capable of measuring different health parameters. And therefore you, many of you may be using also some of these I mean, IoT devices, isn't it? I know. Now, say for example, the Samsung SIM band, if we talk about, then it not only has some built-in sensors, but it also has the feature to able it to accommodate new or additional sensors from third parties. So as new sensors are created, they can be swept in and integrated into this device. So obviously it's a powerful feature. And apart from this, the trend that we are finding is that the prediction is towards adoption of smart homes, industrial and automotive equipment. Okay, so these are the general, say, much faster going trends. Okay, smart homes, people are taking up smart homes, industrial and automotive equipment, because they are making your maybe production quality better, production process better. So, uh, I mean, industries, organizations may be going for that. And another thing that has taken a lead in the data generation area is video surveillance, and which has also grown by leaps and bounds. Everywhere you will now find some video surveillance going on. I mean, be it a mall, be it some railway station, be it airport, be it even a, uh, a single shop or something like that. You always have the CCTV, and I'm not telling you that everybody is always looking into the CCTV and waiting for something to happen or tracking, or not like that always, but what it will give you is that the trend, and that as to which type of people always come to the market, at which time the markets are always brimming with, say, lots of shoppers, and what is the pattern of their buying, and so on and so forth. So video surveillance category itself has generated, uh, I mean, not only has generated, but is also generating a lot of data, which will go for processing in very many diverse fields. That is very, very important. And since all these sensors will be throwing off data too soon, because you know that sensors are always sensing their environment or for the application for which they have been built, and hence they can go on continuously, collecting data, sensing information. But how uh, frequently do you need that? How frequently can you process it? How soon can you store it, or whether you can at all store it, right? So you have to make decisions about handling that data. So all these sensors, since they will be throwing off data very, very soon and at a very high speed and pace, hence you may be not that fast enough to get those data handled properly. So that's another, issue that can be looked into in the near future. And this rich data, why are we telling it rich? Because obviously it's brimming with information. It can feed, these types of data can feed the imagination of each and everybody. That is why it is rich. Data includes audio, image, video, text, if we consider all categories of applications. We all know that image, video data, they make up the most of the important data that we are thinking about, but text data is also a very, very important part of all these types of applications always. And what is more important is that data per device is also growing at a much faster pace than before. So why this is the case? Because first of all, number of devices were not that much, say even 10 years back, isn't it? Now number of devices have grown, and you can also see what the statistics was telling you. And therefore, since the devices have grown in such a large number, therefore data has also grown like that. So data per device is also growing at a much faster pace than before, and therefore they will be very, very, not at all simple to handle, but very complex also. So let us see what these IoT data are and what we have in them. As we instrument larger number of objects, all of these sensors will be creating more and more data streams. And as networks of sensors are built, they will be generating vast quantities of data. And now, as you know, that sensors, rarely work alone, right? So there is a network of sensors, so they will be generating vast quantities of new data. Thus, these sensors are really the front end for a vast data system. Hence, the front end are the connected objects, which can again be represented by different types of sensor devices. Not only sensor devices, but any other kind of. Even if you don't think of IoT only, there are different other devices also, and all together will generate actually a vast data system. So as we create this trillion sensor world, IoT data is going to be astronomical. Okay? And continuous data generated from IoT will have much different characteristics from the data that were generated by applications that we have seen so far. Why so? Because the applications are also various and varied. We many a times, even 10 years before, we may have never thought of some particular application which is now being supposed used by all of us, right? And hence that data were not generated from that application because that application never existed. But now since that application is there, so a huge number of data, huge data is generated, and as new applications are pouring in, hence data generated from IoT will be very, very different in properties and characteristics from the data that were generated from other applications. And why this data will be very, very valuable to us? Because they will be able to throw insights into many, you can say hitherto unknown problems. Okay, we may have known that some type of problems or some types of we may have some hunches into some problems that if we can do this, then maybe it will be better. But we did not have the means. But now we really have the means, and hence we can utilize this vast amount of data. So the vision, data generated from IoT at first glance will always have these characteristics: the volume, amount of data generated per second, velocity, the speed in which the data is generated. And since it is generated, you have to have some particular way of storing them. Either store or save them somewhere, and also analyze, because otherwise, what is the need of keeping all this data, right? So that you can use it for some meaningful purposes later on. Okay. Variety. This means that the data will be in different formats. Okay, there will be different types of data, therefore you have to treat, or maybe you have to store in different ways these different formatted data. Who knows? Okay, so this comes in the first view, that these three will definitely be some added properties to our data that is generated from the IoT. So these are the three V's. So as your data size increases, as the speed changes because it's becoming faster, as the data sources, that means variety of data, since the source may be different types of sensors, maybe different types of other applications, so variety of data. Hence, all of them together, these three properties even make your data complex. Okay, it's not like your other data that you have seen so far. That means you have kept an employee record only, where you have the employee ID, employee name, employee department, not like that only. Okay, Now you may have some other biometric information of the employee and some other information also, maybe his personal health information and some other things, okay? So all these things make your data complex as time goes on. And along with this, we find that whenever these three meet, we are telling it to be, we have coined very, very new terminology, and not new now, but it was new. So big data, big in all the sense of big, of, right? Because volume is big, variety is different, velocity is big. So obviously it's definitely some sort of big data that is being generated from IoT. And then along with this volume, velocity and variety, one important thing comes, that is veracity. Veracity is, it depends on the, maybe the sources of the generation of the data. That means uncertainty of data. That means if you go to that, you obviously know what actually it means and how it also comes into the play. Okay, because you have to be certain that this is from some particular sources, some it's not very old, and so on and so forth. You go on adding several other say properties to the data, and which is inherent for your application, and thereby you get to find the other V's, which are veracity, variability, visualization, value, and volatility. So there are so many V's, and you see that actually your age-old applications really may not have all these V's together, right? So you understand, we all understand that the data generated from IoT systems is of a much, we will not say it is better, we will not say it is worse, we will only say it's very, very different. Okay. So along with, obviously, if the data is big, then how come all other things related with it will be easy? It will not be. So if you want to keep your data safe, then you have to secure your data. And since the data has so many properties of itself, so obviously it is not the same as you were keeping your data safe earlier, the ways you were keeping your data safe earlier. So you have some big security problems along with your big data. Okay. And why would data, this big data that is being generated from IoT systems, more difficult? Of course, because firstly, the variety will make it all the more different, because with the same application you have image, you have say, sometimes video, you have some text data, and these are all very, very different to handle. Okay, so obviously there, how will you secure them? Maybe not one particular say encryption method will be applicable for all of them. Okay, and maybe you will not at all encrypt say some part data. You need not, maybe for some other reasons, because you can portray it in some other way. So for variety particularly, the security problems will arise, and not only variety, you will of course find that since the data is changing at such a faster rate, so how we know that whether you have, you cannot guarantee that yeah, you have secured the data generated in the last interval, and in the next interval I have to secure this data also. So of course it's the time, the complexity of security was becoming the same methodologies that you applied for the other security problems may not be applicable as it is here. So now let us see what security is. So basically, security, though the terminology is very, I mean, often used, well known. All of us know what security is, but still, if you have to provide some, say, formal definition, then we find that security is the prevention of or protection against access to information by unauthorized recipients, as well as intentional but unauthorized destruction or alteration of that information. So that means you can either prevent these 2 points or you can take protection against these 2 points. So basically, even if we think that, okay, if we try to prevent this first one, that means access to information by unauthorized recipients, then maybe we will be able to prevent also this destruction or alteration of that information, because maybe somebody has not been able to get the information. So how will he or she, or for that matter, a process, destruct it or alter the information? But prevention basically means, it means, or you can say that it's a much constrained way of keeping things in place, because you are not even allowing something to happen or occur, or even allowing that as if it is like you have excluded the entry of something in the system, right? So if you do not even allow, say, access to information by others, whether they are authorized or unauthorized, that you can check, right? You can provide access to information to authorized persons only, right? So maybe you are saying that, yes, ma'am, that is prevention because I'm preventing unauthorized recipients. Yes, but not always the things that it may be a valid user, but maybe due to some other reasons, some other lapses in the system, it's getting to access some information for which it does not have the permission. Okay, so there also we can say that if these things happen, then we can take protection. We can see that yes, this user was valid, but due to some other say lapse in the system, since these things happen, so now if these things happen, I will take some measures against it. So this is the protection part. Okay, you allow, but you go on monitoring, you track the system or information or whatever sources that you have to provide security to, and then you take some measures. I mean, you don't take the measures there. I mean, you have it as planned, and then you take the measures if something wrong happens. 3 aspects of security are considered, which are also called the Cia Triad. So confidentiality, the thing that yes, the information may be disclosed to the persons or to the users or to the processes which have the correct authorization or permission to access it. Hence, information that requires protection from unauthorized disclosure. So that is confidentiality. Now, integrity. Integrity is, a whole thing, which means that as that you have to protect your information from what? From unauthorized, unanticipated, or unintentional notification. Okay, so that means whatever data is there, whatever information you have generated, if you pass that information on to others, then that information should be the whole information that has been generated at the source. Okay, so we can tell that that is the data integrity. That means, yes, I have to vouch that the data is correct, even if it travels throughout the system. Now, how do you know that, suppose I am to give you some information. So how do you do that it is Sharmishtani only from Jadavpur University is giving you that information? That you also have to vouch, isn't it? So at the receiving end, maybe the sender has sent, and if there are some, say, malicious nodes in between, they may unauthorized, they may do anything with the information, so it arrives at the recipient. So now it will be the recipient's task to find out whether that particular information has really generated from me. So maybe you can think that, okay, Then how do I check? How does the recipient check? Okay, if you know my signature, then it will be okay if that particular document has a signature of mine. So you know that yes, since madam has signed it, so it is coming from the madam. But of course, there are other, points to it. That means how will you verify that it's my signature? It's okay. There's a process to it, but still, one of the things may be that yes, you can also verify the source integrity. So there are two parts to integrity: data integrity, the information or the data itself, and the source integrity. That means from the sender or the source which has generated it. Here I'm not saying sender always, because the senders may be some, intermediate hops also who are simply relaying the information. Okay, so source integrity, that means I have generated the information. And availability. Now, how comes availability become an aspect of security? Because availability means that as if for whatever systems or applications you are thinking of providing security, it has to be, at your disposal always, at the disposal of the users always. Whenever they want it, they will find it. They will never be denied any service or information, etc., etc. So why such? Because even if there is a very, say, simple security breach or something like that, then the first thing that will be affected generally is your, say, access to the system, access to the information itself. Hence, availability is also considered to be an aspect of security. Now, so we now know how IoT, how data is connected with each other, what type of data is generated, and what security is. So generally, IoT security, we can think of that overall. This is just a mention of the overall IoT security, and I have taken it from this particular paper. So IoT security, of course, there will be some requirements, some challenges, and then how the attack will take place, what are the different sources of the attack, and what may be the threats that will be there. Okay. So all of these will be spanned by the security services. They will cover all of these. And of course, the whole will be the research issue. So that is how these authors have shown IoT security in their paper. And I find it to be a comprehensive, depiction. So I also take the, maybe some advantage and acknowledge them here. So security requirements. Now requirements basically means, that means what you require if you want, what you need if you want your system to be secure. So it may be authentication. That means the validity of the users, identity of the communication partners. Okay, that will say, yes, this particular device is known to the system, this particular users are known to the systems. So if, say, A tries to communicate with B, then whether A and B are valid users in the system, so they have to authenticate themselves by some means. Data freshness. That means, yes, whatever A is sending to B, it has been generated and it is reaching B well within the time span after which, during which it must be used. Otherwise, it may get stale and it may not it may not have its permanence, so it may lose its ability to produce the correct result, and it depends on the applications. Okay, and also not replayed. Why not replayed is being put emphasis here? Because this means that there is nobody between A and B who will say grab up this data, and even if it delays it, or even if it does something with the data and then replay it at some, and then push it forward to B. So this is one way. The other way may be that the same data is being, sent. Same data is being sent at some later point of time. So there must be some way of distinguishing with whether the data is useful or not. And generally, as you have seen that IoT has finds it uses and utilities in real-time applications. So recent data is very, very important. Authorization. That's what I was telling you earlier in case of confidentiality, right? That means even if the device or the users are authenticated, but do they have the permission to access this particular information? That is important. So authorization means the user or the node or the device or whoever is allowed access to the particular service. And of course, the security requirements will be many others. Non-repudiation, fault tolerance, and maybe reliability, and you can say so many things. And one thing I must tell here, I feel that it also depends on the level of security that you want to provide to your application. Okay, because not all applications may require the same level of security. Okay, if it is a say environment application, or suppose a defense related military application, suppose in used in surveillance, obviously, and their level of security may not be the same. But in other cases, suppose some important environmental monitoring is going on, then maybe the security level for that application is as high as any defense related application. Defense related real-time application. So it depends. And therefore, the requirements will also vary. So what may be the challenges, right? We are talking about IoT, remember. IoT means you have such small devices, such small nodes, and still smaller sensors, right? And therefore, they have computational limitations, they have memory constraints, they can be, they do not have rechargeable batteries like for laptops, so energy starvation. And if you are thinking about, say, specific applications, okay, then you know that you may have some wearable devices. Suppose it's a patient monitoring case, so you have wearable devices with the patients, and the patients may be on the move. They may be brought in from some remote villages, say, to the city hospital. So, of course, first of all, the challenge there is those, wellness body area network devices that you have put on your patients, and then as the patients move, their data, how are these data being fed over the network to the hospital to where they are coming, because the roads, Indian roads, they may not have connectivity always, and so on and so forth. And not only connectivity, but also even if there is connectivity, but data may drop, you don't know if it's where, of course, if it's wellness network, then whoever is there, and there may be many prying, say, processes, users, persons who can take your data. Diversity of devices. This is also very, very important. Diversity of devices, because not all devices are same. Hence, the data generation capability, the storing, the say computation capability is also not same. Okay, so you may require different approaches for different devices. Scalability. Scalability, of course. This may, of course, you know what scalability is. So you understand that even if you find some solution with, say, very small IoT network, say only, say, 5-10 devices or something like that, it may not be the same with an industry, say, production line, right? And so you will find different protocols. You will have tamper resistance packaging, and how will you update? If you want to update some security packages and other things, is it possible on those very, very tiny devices? So you have to think of taking these challenges head on. Okay. And therefore, you have to find solutions from whatever you already have. Maybe you have to tweak it, add some more components to it, whether hardware or software, and then make it work on this IoT big data scenario. Now, where from your threat or attack will come, so that you have to put some, say, security package for your data. It can be local or remote compromise. Since you data over the network, so it can be locally or over the but it can be entered. Data. Okay. And there, of course, as I was telling, that if you work on then impersonation, you have to work on that, because somebody may post that, yes, I'm Sharmishta Nyogi, I'm sending you this particular information. So you have to believe it, whether you actually believe it or not. Of course, you have to, have some procedure in place so that you can find out whether it's fake or it's fake. And denial of service, where I think many of us have seen this in whenever we work with, say, on internet. So why won't it be with the Internet of Things, right? So denial of service, traffic interception, that I was telling you, that means maybe I just want to disrupt. I am a malicious node in between, say, for example, and my intention is not to say disable you or something like that. I simply may want some delay. Or if I am much say worse, then I may surely modify your data. And of course, that requires intercepting the traffic on the media. And whenever I am keeping my data at some place, whether it's a server, whether it's a server within your own organization, link or base station, that means who provide access, say disk, server space, and other things. So that is that is a vulnerable point, and it can lead to data breach any. So what are the various there? Say points such threats will become active, and they therefore become attack themselves. All of us know that is not only things, right? So these things you that yeah, this device, this is not functioning, so it may have produced some erroneous data, and hence given you some particular wrong computation and etc. So this is the one. So if I eliminate this from the system, my IoT system will be working correctly. But it's not so simple, because there are communication devices, systems, overall systems, the network, that means not only a single isolated devices, it's a complex network of different types of things. It can be the gateway, it can be your overall cloud. Cloud, of course, means your cloud storage. So, so I feel Data freshness. Data freshness means suppose you are I'm giving shall I provide my answer now or later in my talk? What do you suggest?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Dr. Basu? Shall I give my answer now or at the end of the session?
Ma'am, it's up to you, ma'am.
There is a
Yeah. The question can be taken whenever you feel it's like
Acha,
now or at
okay, okay.
the okay. No issue, ma'am. Yeah.
I think at the end of the session it will be easier.
Yes.
Ah,
Yes.
okay, no problem. Just a second. So this is just a very, very simple scenario of any IoT system. And you can see the data, there are so many sources of and how the data may travel and hence the sources for threats and how they can become active. Okay, this is just a very, very simple example scenario. So the attacks. Attack obviously may be on information. Attacks on information, both in transit data and the stored data may be manipulated. So interruption. Communication links may be lost or unavailable. Yes, because we really never know what type of communication link is available, whether it is available always. So whether it is lost, if the communication link is lost and the data again is sent, then maybe the receiver thinks that, oh, it's the same data, it's being replayed, so maybe there is some problem. Actually, where there is not a problem. Okay. It may be eavesdropping, interception. Eavesdropping, though may seem innocuous at first, that means it may seem to be very, simple type. That means I am only hearing that A is communicating with B. Yeah, I can see that. But this particular information that I know that A transmits with B is itself, sometimes very dangerous information because others may manipulate me for getting this information out of me. I may not know what is being transmitted, how long it is being, and or other, complications of the transmission. But the simple fact that I know the sender and the receiver may be life-threatening, for others to get it from me. So, and of course, modification, because if I can really say even find out or take some sample of the data that is being transmitted, which is not meant for me, and if I can modify it, then obviously I am a malicious node. So it's an unauthorized access and tampering of the data. And that means that whenever I replay that data to somebody, to the ultimate destination, the receiver must have some way of distinguishing it. Fabrication, message forging, replay of the same message. So these are all attacks on the information itself. And attacks on host, of course, will be user compromise, hardware compromise, software compromise. So you see that irrespective of how, say, small or how insignificant the device may seem to you, okay, seem to us, it can be compromised on all aspects, hardware as well as software. And hardware compromise is obviously not that much of a problem also because the sensor is very small and your device may be something depending on say your patient monitoring system. If it is patient monitoring system, then of course it will be of course it will be some wearable sensors, and then those will be very easy to compromise, hardware compromise, and software compromise in vulnerabilities in the program. So vulnerabilities in the program can also be taken care of, but in some other way or the other. And since it's involving network, so network protocol stack attack. And important thing is that the adversary may be insider or outsider. I mean, we always think that there is some, say, intruder in my network or some malicious node who has come to my network, so it's a task of an outsider, but not always. I mean, mostly, if you maybe analyze or something like that, this sort of attacks, you will find that the adversary is insider because it's hard to detect. So let us now look into risk also. That means the risk of having IoT security services at place, and what even if we want to put these services in place, then what other things we shall look into. Okay, so what and where we have to look into. This is important. Accessibility. Now, maybe when we are on, say, the simple internet, I mean, not IoT, we may think that as if I know to which my device is connected to. It has some IP address. It is going to some gateway, and there may be a DNS which is converting, and so on, so on. As if I know what is being done with my device in the network. But when it comes to, say, your coffee machine, or maybe your health sensor, or maybe your induction production line, then how far is such device on which your different types of sensors are mounted are accessible? From which point? You see, the points are quite different. You have never thought of this from network. Okay, so that means maybe from physically, can it be physically? So if it is not physically, then in way of wireless network, it is all the more problematic. It's all the more complex because anybody can access the wireless network if it does not have proper, say, authentication means in terms of functionality. So that means how can the functionality of a device be changed from some particular remote distance via some, say, remote, say, you can say that simply by pressing a button. In terms of connectivity, in terms of end user interaction. So you see that accessibility, the our view has, I mean, it's not the same as we used to think of it before. So you have to look into the entire IoT thing from a very, very different perspective, which generally you cannot even think of always. That's what I am. It's not that you can't think of. Yes, you can think of, because we are now aware users. We know of everything. We know that yes, security breach is a very, very common thing. But though it's common, it may not always happen because of several other problems also. I mean, it's not always very easy to have a security breach also. So you have to look into things from these different perspectives and find out how it can affect you. So risk to integrity, okay? So implications on the system, corrupt data, deliberately malformed data, malfunctioning device. So what does this mean? That means, say, for some reasons or the other, you have some of these, okay? Then what are the risks that you are posing your system into? What are the security risks? I'm not talking about any other risk, okay? What are the security risks? So maybe suppose, say, some corrupt data regarding your health information or regarding your financial information has gone, suppose to a credit card bank company, okay? So if it is really the data that you have provided, so the risk is that they will not give you the credit limit that you want, okay? I'm taking a very, very simple example. It may be some more very complex example also, but whatever just now is coming to my mind, that. So this is the risk, confidentiality risk. So what is it? So if data leak happens, yes, they happen many times. Privacy is not maintained. Then what do you do? So what are the risks? So if privacy is not maintained, say for example, say just for the sake of it, let's suppose when say AIDS was a disease with a taboo. Oh, okay. So if that some particular patient X has this particular disease, then of course the risk was that it was a social risk. Why? Because everybody would then shun that particular patient. He or she would not get any attention, etc., etc. Now, if we come to think of it in terms of, say, security risks to our system, then it may be such that this type of information, private information, say particular bank balance of somebody, or even the turnout, quarterly turnout of some industry, even before they have, they have gone through their own data, the data has been leaked. So what can happen? The shareholders may withdraw, and the data leak may or may not be also real. Okay, so these are the risks that every security system that you are to put in place have to consider beforehand. And remember, beforehand, I am telling, that means even before you have written down some programs, you have put other things in place. And risk to availability is obviously if the device is non-functioning, then what do you do? How do you tell even the others in the system this device is not functioning, so don't ever accept anything, any message from this device? To tell it. So this is the risk. So risk means what would happen if you cannot tell that, right? So that is your risk. What would happen? So that means maybe the system would go for a lockdown. I mean, this may be the ultimate. So you have to think such that these things do not happen to the system. And of course, environment itself, it may not be secure, it may not be physical. So say for example, you have a server and your server is in some particular place which you don't secure. Suppose it's an empty building, so you know that anybody can enter, and it may not be physically safe in the sense that maybe you have only, say, one system administrator and one suppose guard and something like that. So anybody can enter that particular, say, door, through the door, and get to the system. So the environment is also important. And though I'm telling about this physical environment, the environment may also mean your environment, your other environment in the system. That means what type of other applications are you using, what operating system are you using, how safe are they? So if you think environment to be your software environment, it will entail all of this. Okay, so these are your risks. So now I will simply take an example, very short, small example of IoT healthcare. Some facts that may help you in understanding. As you all know, medical sector has already witnessed and is also expected to witness widespread adoption of IoT. As I was telling, patient monitoring. So it would flourish through new e-health IoT devices, that means health devices and applications. And healthcare devices and applications are expected to deal with vital information such as personal healthcare data. Also, such smart devices may be connected to global information networks for their access anytime, anywhere. Yes, this is true. And we all also like it that yes, whenever I log into, say, some particular hospital system, some particular caregiver system, I find my data to be in place, and I know that these are because I have put them there, And so I have put them there. Or say, for example, the clinic from where I have got my tests done, they have put them there. So the user is happy, right? Because they may not be so technically savvy, they may not know what others can do with their health information. But we as maybe technical persons, maybe doing some research into these fields, we know that this health information may be used not always in a good way. I mean, not always in a way that you would like to help the patient go to his or her home and tell that, yes, you require these medicines and you cannot afford it, so I'm giving it to you. Not like that. You may actually use that information to tell maybe it's say that insurance companies that why are you going to have insurance for these people, because he or she is not technically, I mean, not financially such a viable person and so on. Okay, so you see the same information may be used in good way or in a bad way. Okay, so and how? Because they will be connected to some global information network. So we would like them to access it maybe from my mobile home device, maybe from my laptop, and anywhere. Maybe when I'm in Calcutta, maybe when I'm in Bangalore. Okay. So what can be the IoT healthcare security components? Okay, so attackers may target this IoT healthcare domain as if it is easy to target. So to facilitate full adoption of distinct features IoT. Yeah, you see here we have also included another terminology which is not only security, which also includes the term privacy. And why it has become so important? Because of this important thing that our data is generated maybe from even our coffee machine. Maybe it is being generated by my GPS that now at such a location. Okay, and hence at any time I may reach home or I am at this position. So at this location, so of course it is revealing my private information, my private location information, which I may not really like to share with everybody, isn't it? And hence it is not only pertaining to my application in healthcare, it can pertain to any other application too. Okay, so the security requirements that is being included will be the different requirements, vulnerabilities, threat models, and countermeasures. So the identification and analyzing of distinct features of the IoT security and privacy. Firstly, as I have already told you, that means requirement of that particular application. Okay, if it is a health application, its security requirement is thing. If it is some other application, requirement is some other thing. And vulnerability. Vulnerability basically is the, you can say, the weak point which, but interesting thing is that how I know that this is the weak point in entire. Okay. Say for example, all of us know that say the your ports, okay, your US ports, they are vulnerable points because viruses may come through your pen drive and other things. All of us know that. So they are weak points. And what you can, of course, you can check every device that you plug in the so you know the threat model also, that means what can come through what. So you know the attack surface, you know the kind of threat that is possible there. And you also know the gap. What type of gap? Gap means here, that means you know that yes, I may be attacked with virus. So I can up the and can scan data. I can do that. But I think that, it's not virus. It's not possible because I'm simply fact that my device is also connected to the internet. So possibly this US port is not the only way that this can come in. And hence, what I will simply think is that, oh, I may not regularly update the virus database. I may not regularly scan the device. I may a lot that these are the put these are the countermeasures. So this is securing the IoT data. So you have to discover some sensitive data because to each and every data, then of course it's a huge task. So you discover some sensitive data. I try to implement the solution, integrate it, and then secure it. But even after doing that, you have to monitor it, isn't it? Otherwise, how do you know that your data has become really safe? And since it is big data, so your data is always coming and it growing by leaps and bounds. So you have to data find out from data. So these are the types of data, and you can easily that which sector gives what type of data. So now let us have a look, very quick look into the security framework. So core components are data identity, access management, and privacy. So data privacy comes now. So the that is what, and whether the data is being generated from a form being filled up by you. Okay, and of course, network and infrastructure security will always be there. You remember your data from so many different fields. Okay, so different types of data. So if you need to classify your data, determine all distinct types. So this as you identify the data fields, that means the features of data, then how of data. For example, you're getting an image, some particular image for several stages of security, other maybe not. Okay. So you have to then find what is the then you find out who are as a you have to find if it is find first get the root then the risk, but that's the breach happen. But all the thing that to identify, find out the data fields, and it's not a very simple task that we are talking about because there are lots and lots of applications. They involve different types of data and so on. For structured data, sensitivity can be handled programmatically. That means if you have some text data, so you know the fields, so you know which data field will have values that are being sensitive, which must not be revealed. Sensitive, mostly you can say that revealing that may put somebody at risk, some process or somebody at risk. So you can say that for structured data, since the fields are all known and the length of the fields, everything about the data is known, so you can handle it programmatically. So what about unstructured data? For unstructured data, sorry. For unstructured data, the data structure and schema identification and validation has to be done. So this is not at all a very, very easy thing. You have to identify, what type of unstructured data is it? Because not all applications will have the same type of unstructured data. So you have to find out the format, you have to validate, you have to identify the schema, and then only you can think of the breaches that can occur to it and which users may access it and what type of risk will be there if you lose the data, or if you have garbled data, or you have partially unusable data. Okay, and you can also have you can also tag your data, so you can identify all sources of the data and all egress points of your data. Now, of course, for some particular application which is in a constrained environment, say for example, an agricultural field, you are employing your IoT on agricultural field with different types of, say, soil sensors, moisture measurements, and sprinklers and other things. Okay, so you may know at which points you have provided your say sensors and other things, and therefore to which sinks they will be sending the data. So you can tag the data like that, and if you have some enemy also on the front means, that means suppose your some person who is working in the next field wants to destroy your crop, it can also do something, right? So these are the users who can access your data. So in that way you can identify the sources of data from where the data is coming, and you can tag the data and find out these things. Okay, so this is generally the same. That means who are the users associated, what will be the breaches, and what will be the risks if this is done. Risks for what? Damages means, that means risks to your application. Identity access management. So far, you see, we were dealing with the data. You can say data integrity, data, correct data, whether it is stale or not, these types of qualities. Now, we are thinking, who will access my data? This is a very, very important thing, because generally for all say systems, and nowadays at least for different applications and IoT applications, we always think of using our cloud services, right? So we all put our data in the cloud and always have a fear. We are afraid, who is accessing my account, who is doing this and that, and whether my management, that means whether my organization has good access policy for the data, so that nobody else is getting access to my data, and so on. Okay, so there may be centrally managed access policies, because they are easy to manage. So we can monitor the account accesses, access restriction for certain number of failed login attempts. You see, these all things are there already, irrespective of whether it is belonging to some IoT system, whether it is for your data security, whether it is for your overall, network security, overall application security in the system, whatever be it, we already have this sort of applications at hand, right? And access restriction based on number of accesses also. That means maybe some bank may think that in a day you cannot access, you should not access your accounts more than certain times. I mean, that's that prerogative. You cannot argue for that. I mean, you can argue and you may get some special, say, access permission that may be done, but like that, okay? And the access may also be sometimes on some attribute of data based access. And data tags may indicate data to be protected. That means which data needs to be, not all application data may require the same sort of security level. Not only will require same security, but also not all data will require from the same application will require sort of security. Sometimes it may be role, sometimes permission may be based on different permission of the user. Okay. Identity and access management so that our data is proper protection and privacy. That means we see that my data is now whole. How shall I manage data? Okay, that was in granular, I mean, unstructured data, and now comes maybe the field level identification of the data. So I have level cryptographic protection. It's a, I mean, I have not talked about cryptography in this lecture because I'm pretty sure that all of you are aware of it and how it is used. I have got cryptography. All of that its application will have application level cryptography. We can go down till
Hello, ma'am, your voice is breaking.
that much of a
Suparna ma'am, are you there?
Yes, yes. Ma'am, there is some audio issue. Ma'am, can you hear us?
I can hear us, but my sharing has gone away. Or can you
ma'am,
see
please
it?
reshare it, ma'am. Please reshare it.
Okay. Something happened, yeah.
Yes, ma'am, network problem.
Sometimes it. So can you see now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay, fine. So we can have application level cryptographic protection down to the, you can say, the lowest level. Okay, and of course we can have full disk encryption always. We can have data masking. So there are several ways, and also we can have for privacy preserving data management techniques. That is important maybe in case of, say, some particular types of applications. And healthcare comes to my mind because I work with healthcare mostly, so it comes to my mind. So privacy preserving data management, what is it? Data anonymization. Modify the data in such a way that no information can directly link the data items with individuals. Okay, so anonymization, of course, the true meaning of the English word, that means some sort of anonymity, you cannot know who is this. We always time as donor, just like that. So anonymization means that the data is being modified in such a way that we do not know between the individual whose data actually is and the data. So no information, the data items with the individuals. And an extension of it, I mean, widely used, I can say, k-anonymity. So I wrote the data because many a times you have to data, right, to say other applications, to some other sources, to some big shot, say, users, and so. But you do not want to, I mean, kill the data owners, right? So you want to preserve their privacy. So what you do is that you use identity protection for each is indistinguishable from at least k-1 subjects whose information is also contained in the same release. So the way you release the data, that means even though there are, suppose you think that as if there are k rows which is reading the more or less the same type of information, each such row to the owner. Subjects whose information is also contained in the same release. What you can do is that, suppose you can have say some sort of say you have, what can I say, k-1 subject. Suppose you have an age group. Okay, so you can say that at first you have mentioned all the patients with their actual ages, right? And then when you are releasing the data, you're actually not releasing their actual ages. You were mentioning that some age groups, say 20 to 30. So of course, in that age group, many such users will fall. So everything will be identical, but the thing that is important is that you will never be able to get the some actual subject from that release. So that is K anonymity. So as we were talking about access control, these are the other I mean, though I have not mentioned, and I am sure, pretty sure that all of you are aware of these different access control mechanisms. So access provided to users may vary with applications and sometimes within an application too. That means at different levels, you may be forced to change the access control. Say maybe, I shall not say always policies, but maybe the requirement of the application makes you do that. Okay, so there may be discretionary access control. So one of the most well-known access control models in which you see the data owner decides who will get what type of access. Mandatory access control, the model in which the operating system has control over access to data users. Role-based access control, one of the widely used access control models in which access to data is provided based on the role the user is assigned to the system. Okay, the role basically, or I shall say generally, refers to the kind of activity or the task that the user performs in the system. So with respect to a healthcare application, I can say that doctor is a role, nurse is a role, maybe pathologist is a role, like that, okay? And of course, patient. And another is attribute-based access control. This prevalent access control mechanism assigns access rights to users based on policies combining attributes. Now, these attributes may belong to any type. That means it can be attributes from user, it can be resource attribute, it can be environment or contextual attribute, and of course it can be your data attribute and so on and so forth. Okay, and that is why we are telling here that access provided to users may vary within an application also. Okay, within an application also, that means some, let's say for the first time you allow based on some role. Okay, then later on you find that not all users with this role must have access to all the fields of the data. For example, in a healthcare system, you can think that, okay, somebody may be your primary doctor, somebody may be your primary nurse, but suppose the primary doctor wants some other doctor to be consulted in the case. So that secondary doctor may be given, say, some obviously access to the patient data, but that access may not be required for, I mean, during the duration of the treatment. I mean, it may be for a temporary purpose, or if it is, say, for some particular, say, particular ailment, then the doctor maybe, the secondary doctor may have a look into some basic information and some information which is which seems to relate his or her, say, specialization. Okay, that may also be true. So in that way, we are telling that maybe within an application, the access may be, I mean, access provided may vary from time to time. And thus we can protect the data using encryption of the data fields, as I have already mentioned. Creation of metadata. This is what I have not, I mean, mentioning in great details over here, but creation of metadata also helps in protecting the data ultimately. And encryption of data fields and queries also. I mean, not only the encryption of data fields, but also encryption of the queries. That means it will therefore, I mean, it may not reveal who is querying, what fields are being queried, and so on, because many a times the application requirement is such. So this is, I'm just mentioned as, if you are interested, so you can you can pursue and find out how this may be done. And this is what I was talking about: allowed partial access as well as allowed time expired access. That means you give access to the say particular user for some time, say any day, or say for some particular time in during his recovery or during his or her treatment, and so on. Okay. So partial access also means, partial access means, that means since there may be say data field 1, data field 2, data field 3, say data field 4, in this way, suppose there may be say up to k data fields. Okay, but you are giving, say, access to the nurse, not all the fields, but say some fields like this. Okay, say up to 10 fields you are giving access, because you understand that the nurse may not require access to the other fields. It's not relevant for the task that he or she is doing. So in this way also, you can protect your data. Now, how will you do that? Of course, that's a very, very research-oriented problem, and I shall share you some of the works that we have done. I mean, only the references over here, because I am not able to describe them. So you can, I mean, if you are interested, you can always study further. And of course, there are different data protection laws of different governments. So this is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability HIPAA Act for the from the US government. This law is designed to provide privacy standards to protect patients' medical records and other health information provided to health plans, doctors, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. These new standards provide patients with access to their medical records. These also allow them to exercise more control over how their personal health information can be used. So this is what this particular act has provided. Okay, so you see, if you really have to do something regarding, say, health monitoring act and other things, not act, I mean health monitoring application, remote health application system, and other things, then you have to maybe follow this if HIPAA. Similarly, there is a general data protection regulation, GDPR, in UE, European Union law on data protection and privacy for all individuals. It also addresses the export of personal data outside the European Union and the EEA areas. The GDPR aims primarily to give control to individuals over their personal data. Okay, so all of them, many governments are therefore now focusing on giving the individuals their respect to privacy. Okay, so this is what the laws are about. And presently, though, India does not have any express legislation governing data protection or privacy. However, the relevant laws in India dealing with data protection are the IT Act. Okay, a confined law on the subject of data protection is likely to be introduced maybe in the near future. So we can all hope for that. So as I was telling you that if we go back, we find that our big data security framework, these are the different say components. So we were discussing the acts with respect to this point, data protection and privacy. So we have network security, which and the infrastructure security, we may not be dealing with in detail. So for network security, we have this transport layer security protocol, which is already in place. It authenticates and ensures privacy of communications. Additionally, packet level encryption from client to cluster and within cluster may be used, and maybe other types of protocols can also be, used or you can experiment with. And users may be allowed till a particular point in the network. This is also, an interesting feature. As an example, it may be said that clients must not communicate with data node, but with the name node only. So this can be implemented from the, maybe with respect to the servers where these particular things are stored. And of course, firewalls are very common practices nowadays in each and every organization. So, and we have our infrastructure security and integrity. And since these are parts of any type of security system, so these are, you can say, general in nature. Okay, they may not always tell you that yes, you can protect your data in this way or that way, but they are more general in nature. But they will help you in finding out the, basics of what that means if breaches are okay. For be very helpful. So you have audit logs, but don't think that since you have some audit, everything in log, so you don't otherwise. From not only adversaries, remember, so audit logs need, there can be secret to be used to prevent unauthorized clusters nodes to join. Yes, so certificates, mostly systems use certificates, digits and other things. So you, this may be one of the prevent unauthorized access. Permissions may be added by security control teams. If your organization is bent on having some particular security system in place, also, and therefore and there may be all level integrity, data integrity checking. SE Linux has mandatory access control, so you can use that also, and monitoring big data clusters by different audit log technologies are also in use now. So, I mean, there are nowadays you have so many available, say, you can say, technologies, applications, I mean, for security purposes also. Applications in the sense that means for monitoring, tracking, and even the way also. Secure type of ways, I mean, which provides you much enable, I mean, features. So you all these in places. So the thing is that whether you whether usual requirement need or not. Go for this big data security framework and which one I mean will see require go on filling them up. In a nutshell, we can say that important thing is that you have to incorporate security in the IoT. And it is not that security is something which you can add as an afterthought after you have designed everything, after you have written down your application, you install all security also. Then it's really not possible. I mean, I'm not saying not possible, but it is actually not a very good idea. It will not like that, and it will come since it thought maybe it will. You can have some particular stages in the, I mean, a whole data life. Okay, so security in IoT and data planning, just think of it. So when you are acquiring data, when you are gathering, collecting the information and thinking of in the IoT devices, and then maybe transmitting it to cloud, some other server, a lot of things, and how we store it. You have to safe storage. Remember, data at rest must also be stored securely. So we have to maybe the access right from that stage. To balance among the following approaches, so you have network-centric approaches, access control-centric approaches, as well have data-centric. Okay, it again depends on what you not only but which one will be particular. Okay, and data management tools may be use log and audit always. Okay, I mean, I have it's not mentioned here that they must be, I mean, advisable to use them with has given us the opportunities and best statistically. But word of caution is that security we put other there is any chance of the characteristics of the data.
Ma'am, your voice is breaking.
Ma'am, your voice is breaking. Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, can you hear us?
Ma'am has been disconnected, ma'am. I think ma'am is rejoining.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I'm, of course, I am in the fag end of my lecture.
Yes,
So
yes, ma'am.
just a second. I was actually therefore going for some good spot where you will be able to hear me, though I don't know whether there is any good spot or something like that for your internet connection. So I think you can see my
Yes,
screen now.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So as I was telling, that the only thing that we need to be aware of is that the security must be put in place. Otherwise, there is every single chance of misuse. Okay. And so I hope that I have come to the end of my lecture, so-called lecture. So these are the acknowledgements. These are some of my co-workers, I should say. There are many others, but for preparing this particular presentation, I have taken help of these. And the other references that I have taken, mostly these different types of references from the internet, as well as some books and other things. So thank you all for your very, very patient hearing. And I don't know whether I had made any sense to you or not.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your obviously illuminating and also several avenues of future research who are interested in this area have been already exposed to them, including from the security concepts, and then over a wide range of the detail of access control, authentication, and then of course the different layer issues also, like MAC layer, transportation layer. So from the very beginning point of view, and over a wide range of research issues and challenges basically have been well explored. So I think participants have got many such exposures. And ma'am, one question is there in the question and answer area. I am reading it out by Joydeep Mukherjee. How data freshness is involved in IoT, preferably given example.
So I would like to give the example with respect to health, health monitoring. It the doctor as soon as possible, isn't it? For some during transmission or some other security breaches. So because if that data does not reach, I mean, within some time, maybe the patient was is to have a heart attack or something like that. I mean, maybe some breathlessness, etc. So available from that is or some other ECG data and other things. So if it reaches the doctor, say half an hour late, then maybe by that time we would not be able to help the patient at all. So that is what is meant by data freshness, data liveliness. We mean this sort of thing. And it is also, say for example, also in case of say environmental monitoring, right? Suppose some particular area in the city has a high level saturation of say some particular gas, which causes say some asthmatic tendencies. So persons with asthma should not go to that region, maybe during that peak hour when that particular poisonous gas is in the air at a much higher level. So if that information does not reach in time, okay, so it is basically useless. I do not want to use the word useless, but it may not be of that much of a use or utility. That's what is meant by the data freshness.
I think yes, ma'am. With the two examples, I think it's very much clear. So I think if we would have been done this program in real world, then I must say that please join hands to express the thanks to ma'am for her wonderful session. So thank you once again, ma'am, on behalf of the organizing committee and obviously our university and TechIP for supporting to organize this FDP program. Thank you very much once again, and looking forward for future such connections and in other collaborations also. So
thank
a very
you
good,
so much also.
yeah, a very good evening and good night, ma'am. And also, ma'am, one thing I want to mention that Professor Somiran Chattopadhyay, sir, the eminent speaker of next session, have joined us half an hour before, and he is with us. Yeah, sir, welcome, sir.
Then you can start your next.
You're welcome.
Hello, Professor Chattopadhyay.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening and welcome, sir, to this FDP program. Ma'am, with your due.
Is it the last session of the last day?
Today? No, sir, it is day 3.
Hey.
No, last day.
It is, sir, day 3, second session. There are 2 more days to go. So, ma'am, thank you once again. Now we will move on to the next session.
I would like to extend my thanks again. Next session. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
I may join.
Yes, ma'am.
At some time in the session.
Yes, sure, ma'am. And that would be our pleasure if you have some time to stay with us. And thank you, ma'am, for this.
Yes.
And so for dear participants, the eminent speaker of next technical session, Professor Somiran Chattopadhyay sir, has joined us. A very warm welcome and heartfelt thanks to sir for accepting our invitation, for delivering a lecture in this session and share his experience with us. Sir, welcome once again. A brief introduction about sir before handing over the session to him. Professor Somiran Chattopadhyay is a professor and the founder head of the Department of Information Technology, Jadavpur University. He is also a visiting fellow of the University of Northumbria, UK. He has served as the joint director of the School of Mobile Computing and Communications since its inception. He secured 2nd and 4th rank in the state at class 10 and class 2 level examinations. A graduate, a postgraduate, and a gold medalist from Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. He received his PhD degree from Jadavpur University. Apart from teaching for more than 30 years, he has 2 decades of experience of serving reputed industry houses such as Computer Associates, InterAsystems India, Agilent, Motorola in the capacity of technical consultant and senior management positions. He is also a project consultant of the prestigious National Digital Library Mission of Government of India, held the development of an open source C++ infrastructure and toolset for reconfigurable computing, released under the GNU GPL 3.0 license. He is also a co-faculty in NPTEL DBMS course. His research area includes network security, machine learning, wireless network, and pervasive computing. He has authored, edited more than 10 books, and published more than 180 articles in reputed journals and international peer-reviewed conferences. So with this brief introduction, I welcome sir for this second session on user authentication in IoT environment. And I feel extremely privileged to invite sir and host this session as a student of my teacher. So it's the session is yours, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vishwas. I mean, it's a pleasure to come to such a respond to queries. I mean, respond to invitations from the students like you. So it's a pleasure for me to come here and give this talk. So firstly,
Yes,
Can you
sir.
hear
Yes,
me?
sir.
Can all of
You
you
are
can you
audible.
hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah. So should I share my screen first? Should I share my
Yes.
screen first and
Yes, sir.
then we can go to? Can you see that?
Yes, sir, it is visible, sir.
It's
Is it
visible.
is it visible?
Yes, sir, it is
Yeah.
visible, sir.
So yeah. So thank you for your generous introduction again, and let us start because this is the last session and it's already evening. So we must be tired after listening to lectures and doing your own job as well. Uh, so I'll be a little brief because of certain things, and my topic would be user authentication in IoT environment. Um, uh, let me go to the agenda first, and um, yeah, before I go to the agenda even, let me acknowledge my colleagues and research scholars for their help in this presentation, not exactly in preparing the presentation, but basically they worked with me, and whatever I will be talking about today are done and discussed and brainstormed everything with them. They are Dr. Sandeep Roy and Mr. Shomo Banerjee. Both of them were my research scholars. Dr. Sandeep Roy has already got his degree in 2019, and he is working in Essential Engineering College as an assistant professor. Shomo Banerjee just submitted his PhD thesis, and my collaborator, Professor Ashok Das at IIIT Hyderabad, he was instrumental in inspiring me to come to this world of security. Before his persuasion, I was not working in this particular domain at all. So it has been something like 5-6 years for me in which I worked in this domain. And that's all my limited experience and expertise in this particular topic. Now, going to the introduction part, I mean, I have only 3 parts. One is the introduction. The second one is I'll talk about the basics of authentication and a bit of access control. Then I'll go to 2 sample solutions that we ourselves tried in recent years. But to introduce it, I must say that it will be something like a pedagogical presentation, not like a research presentation. So I'll be more like getting people exposed to this field who are not, and those who are already exposed may get something, but this talk is particularly designed to inspire people to come to this particular domain, know about it and find out how beautiful and how I would say mathematically challenging this particular field is. Although I'll not talk about mathematics a lot, after all, our aim in this talk is not to be mathematical. We would try to find out the summary of the mathematics that we'll be using, and you are welcome to do your bit in mathematics as well. But that's not what we'll do today. Today we'll be confining ourselves to the overall gamut and the scope of user authentication in IoT. In particular, I will not go into user authentication in wireless sensor networks or wireless networks like that. There are many other areas in which you can work for authentication. We will not go into that. So how I did beat my competition in terms of performance, in terms of expressibility feature set, but rather I will try to show you how I designed it, how I got the proof philosophy right. That's what my intention would be. So let us go a bit slowly. Let us go a bit slowly. Let us slowly delve into the world of authentication in specific and security in general. So A security system basically has these 4 steps: identification, authentication, authorization, and access control. So you have to say first, you have to claim first. I mean, you have to go somewhere and say that I have come. So identification is something like that. I declare that Shambhiran Chattopadhyay is here to present you the talk. The next question that you might ask me, how do I guarantee that you are Shambhiran Chattopadhyay? Can you give me a mechanism by which I can really find out that you are Shambhiran Chattopadhyay, not Sharmishta Niyogi, or for that matter, not Shomo Banerjee? So you can answer that question because you're seeing me. And probably because you are, even if you're hearing me, you can hear a male voice and you understand that it is not a female voice. Therefore, you do some bit of authentication there. Now, this authentication is primarily verifying who you are. Then comes authorization, which we will go to. But before that, before I leave this slide, I would like to say that this authentication has to be done, of course, without the picture of the person or the voice of the person, with certain parameters that he or she might give, and that thing will come over through insecure channel, a public channel to the recipients, and the recipients have to find out from that kind of received message that the person on the other side is actually whoever he or she claims him or her to be. So once that part is over, then we come to another question. I mean, if I say that I am Shambhiran Chattopadhyay, then I want some access to some data, right? Now, am I authorized to do that? Am I authorized? I mean, can I look at any data, whatever is available in that particular server? Maybe, may or may not be. Even if it is a simple IoT device, it may contain a number of data items, variety of data items. So, can I? Hello. Please let me know if I go inaudible. Am I audible?
It is continuing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So just authentication is not sufficient. There must be some access policy of data by various users. Some user may look at a part of the data. Some user may look at another part of the data. You may compare this to the view of that you have in the relational database, for example. Whatever background you have, this has an analogy there. I mean, for example, if you are from OS operating systems, then you know that there are 3 levels of authorization, access control there, which is like owner, group, and the creator, right? I mean, so there are 3 types of owners, right? Super user, user, and group. User, group, and super user. And in each one of them, there are three access privileges: read, write, and access. Therefore, we get a basically 3-digit kind of, 111-100 kind of a thing to say what kind of access privilege we have. So, so this is an additional layer of authorization, and this is also called access control. So these are the 2 things: authentication and access control, which typically go together. They are separately treated, they are separately discussed. Research papers come out separately. But if you think about a system, if you think about a solution, then authentication must be followed by some access control mechanism, without which the entire system cannot run. We'll talk about the nitty-gritties of access control a little later. For the timing, we kind of go to continue with authentication. 2-3 small interferences before we go there. One is the IoT network model. You can see here 4 scenarios. One is a smart home kind of a thing. One is a smart transport. One is something like utilities, something like an environment. So there are 4 kind of scenarios, and each one of them are connected to, this is Internet of Things actually, and the users are connected to that Internet of Things, as well as these things are connected to that. Typically, things will not be connected to the internet in a very direct manner. They will be connected to the internet via what is known as a gateway. This term gateway is not very is not very standardized. There are many names to this, but however, whatever be it, we can call that a gateway. The gateway from gateway between the internet, basically the bridge between the internet and the IoT devices, or IoT devices on one side. So users will typically talk to the gateways first, and then they will get a link to the IoT devices. And similarly, if we go to the communication and the trust model, it is a little early, but even then you see that basically the gateway node, which is GWN, we have abbreviated it as GWN, and this abbreviation we will see in many places. So we have to take this with us, this abbreviation with us. We have users, and we also will have typically a smart card for that user, and we have devices. So the gateway is connected in a duplex manner to the device as well as to the user, and the user has a smart card. Now the smart card is given to that user for that from that particular gateway only, right? So the gateway may be connected with a number of devices. I've shown you just one. Similarly, a gateway may be connected with many users at the same time, and the gateway trusts. Gateway is trusted, but the users are not trusted. Similarly, the devices are not trusted. So if you want to make a communication between user and the device, then you have to get a trust certificate kind of a thing from the GWN. So you have to talk to the GWN, make the GWN happy that you are that user, and you are trusted. Once that is known, then the device has to say that device has to be with the GWN, and it has to be trusted to the GWN. Once it is done, then the GWN can give you a smart card for you for use for a set of devices, not only one device, a set of devices. That list will be dynamic. That list will change. That list will increase. That list will decrease as well. So, are these models sacrosanct? No, these are not sacrosanct. Even in the two papers that we'll be talking about, one will actually use this model, and the other one will not. For that matter, this GWN is a little simple in this particular diagram. It may also have authority, attribute authority server. It can also act as an access authority or attribute authority server when you go to access control mechanisms. So these are kind of simplified diagrams. Even from problem to problem, solution to solution, this change. But when you pose a solution, then you should be clear about what kind of communication model that you are talking about and what kind of trust model that you are talking about. So these two things you must be clear, and then you have to go forward. Next is you have to know your enemy. The first thing to make something secured is to know your enemy. Now, how do I know my enemy? I have to know what my adversary can do. Now, what my adversary can do? Are there formal answers to this question? Yes, there are. I would say the first standard that came out in this context was Dolev Yao. These are two persons. One is Danny Dolev and the other one is Andrew Yao, if I recollect correctly. And the paper came in Transactions and Information Theory in 1983. It's good that it is, it is still valid and still going with good steam. So here, the adversary can do a lot of things. It is assumed that the public channel is insecure and communications are to be done finally over an insecure channel. You may always say that one or two of a kind can be done over a secure channel. That's possible. But in general, other than those a few special messages, normal messages will go through public channel. And what the adversary can do there, it can eavesdrop. It can eavesdrop all the traffic. It can inject packets, it can modify them, it can block them, it can replay them. More than that, it can impersonate. It can send messages to an entity, impersonating another entity, right? Now, one more thing I wanted to add in this threat model, because we work with this assumption. and that the smart cards that you have are not tamper-proof material. I mean, the hardware for it is not tamper-proof. What does that mean? That means if another person gets the smart card, then they can read the content of that smart card using what is known as side channel attack. I mean, these techniques are quite standardized nowadays. It is called power analysis. Through power analysis, one can always find out the content of that smart card. The smart card contains a number of things, as you will find out. What does it contain? It contains things depending on the protocol of which you are using for the security. So we'll see in two examples what the smart card contains. And as I earlier said, that the gateway node is considered to be very, very secure. It's trusted. Now we go to the second part of this DUI model. Now I would like to say what it cannot do, what your adversary cannot do. Your adversary cannot guess a random number which is chosen as part of a security protocol. Now you'll find out that the entities involved in a communication, secure communication over insecure channel will actually use a number of random numbers. Now those random numbers will not be known to the adversary. Basically, they cannot control the memory of the computing device. Neither they can look at it. So these random numbers are the state of the entities are not visible to the adversary. And without the knowledge of the key, the adversary cannot figure out the plain text from the ciphertext. Basically, this means that we are assuming that the cryptographically the adversary is a little constrained, right? So advantage of the adversary depends on the kind of cryptographic primitives that you are using, and in most cases that those primitives are good. I mean, very well done, very well designed, and therefore the advantage to the adversary will not be high. So these are the two things which DUI threat model told us, that if you are designing a secured protocols, I mean, for communication, then you have to assume that your adversary can do all that and cannot do all this, and you have to prove that your protocol actually survives such an adversary, attacks from such an adversary. So that's what you have to prove. How do we prove? A different question. We'll have some answer to that in some slides. Some answers, because it is not a simple question and it cannot invite a simple answer, but naturally you can have a good answer. So is this the end? I mean, that's all that the adversary can do, or it can do more. So in fact, we have kinetic Krugzik adversary model, which was first presented in Eurocrypt 01, 2001. It has all, I mean, this adversary has all the powers, all the abilities of the DUI adversary, but it is it is a stronger adversary, and it is the current de facto standard. And what it does more is it can look at the session states and the session keys, not really session keys, the session states. I mean, if you are having a random number for a particular session, then those random numbers can be, the random numbers can be many types. For example, there could be some random numbers which live longer, like static variable or global variable in your programming language. They kind of stay with you for a long time. And then there are something like local variables, local random numbers. One session, one random number. Next session, another random number. Now, this adversary can actually pick at the session states and therefore can find out the random numbers in that particular, used in that particular session by a particular agent, by a particular entity. Now, why not globals? Why not long-term keys? The idea is that the long-term keys can be separately done separately stored in a module which is protected by certain hardware. And the session, naturally they are protected. I mean, you can protect them in a hardware because they will be staying there for a long time. These short-term random keys will not do that. So therefore they cannot be stored in that manner, and therefore I can, if I capture a particular agent, then from that agent I can find out all about the sessions using. Is that end? Is it the end of the adversary? No. In 2007, I'll not read it more. In 2007, we got an ECK, which does a lot more. Now you can easily, I mean, you can of course ask me, then see, then therefore finding out an adversary is not a challenge. I can just go on adding powers to it. Yes, but then your paper will not be published, because if you say that I have an adversary model, then you have to say, you have to implement it. You have to say how this adversary can be, implemented in certain simulation models, in certain reality. How is it possible to do that? If you cannot show that even in simulation, that I simulate my adversary in this manner and see that I can find these things, then without showing that, you cannot really just go and generally say that my adversary can do a lot more. So just finding out what an adversary can do is a separate research topic in itself, and some people do that. However, we work on these threat models and we try to find out the protocols which can avoid, which can survive over and above these threat models. That's what our intention is. Now, what are the crypto primitives that we'll be using in authentication? Our standard answer would be public key-based schemes are the best. All of us know that. A pair of keys, one public, one private. I mean, one private, public, that depends. Basically two private keys for the two parties and one or more public key, whatever it is, depends on that. There are a whole lot of mathematical theorems, formula, mathematical frameworks which are available to design such schemes. We have very hard problems like prime number factoring. We have problems like discrete logarithms. We have problems like discrete logarithms on elliptic curves, things like that. And depending on that, so far we have generated many different types of algorithms, popular being RSA, ECC, DHK, things like that. And now ECC is going a little more popular. I mean, it's a better than RSA. We all know that. And but however, public key is not something that we can use in IoT, because public key cryptography is computationally intense. I mean, it needs more computational power, and we know that our devices may not have all that power, so therefore we will not do that. We will go for lightweight schemes. Whatever proposal we'll go with lightweight schemes. Now, what are lightweight schemes? We have cryptographic XOR. We have one-way hash functions. Examples are MD5, SHA1, SHA2, work, RIPE MD160, or symmetric encryption like AES, DAS, 3DAS, AES 64, 128, like that. These are all popular and these are used, and SHA we have used a lot, and we have used AES as well. We have used one more, Chebyshev's chaotic map operations. Chebyshev's polynomial, I'm not going to the mathematics of that, but it's a very interesting polynomial. It has a recursive definition, and it has two properties which makes it very useful in terms of security, use in security area. One is called chaotic map property, and the other one is chaotic property, and the other one is not exactly semi-group property. It is not commutative as well. There's a property by which you can say it is a polynomial, right? It's called TU. I mean, T with a parameter is a polynomial on X, for example. Now, if you do a TU on X and on top of that you do TR, then that's the same as TU on TR of X. So it's like commutative property. So two polynomials, you do a TUX, get a polynomial, use that polynomial and do a TR. That is the same as first do TU and then do TR. So whether you do TR first or you do TU first is going to be inconsequential in that. We'll be using that property in our protocol. So I talked about it, and whenever you go there, we'll show you what that property, the use of that property there. We'll highlight that particular thing. So there are various approaches that we that you have already read when we proposed that protocol at that point of time. I'm not going to all that, but there are a host of them. There are a host of them. All of them had some kind of problems. I mean, some of them could not assure mutual authentication. Some of them could not assure user anonymity. Some of them could not assure untraceability. There are various known attacks. I mean, it's on security. The FDP is on security. I'm assuming, and I'm pretty sure, pretty confident that you have come across many names of many different attacks: man-in-the-middle attack, forward secrecy attack, backward secrecy attack, password spoofing attack, stolen smart card attack. So there are a host of attacks. Now, mutual authentication is a property. Now, if A and B are communicating with a shared key, maybe a session key. Now, the session key has to be prepared with contributions from both A and B. Just A preparing a session key, handing it over to B, or B handing it over to A is not a good proposition. It's not a good property for from the perspective of security. So that's called mutual authentication. When you create a session key for a particular session, then is that session key was created by contributions from both A and B, both the parties? If the answer is yes, the mutual authentication property of that particular session key is preserved. Similarly, your password, your messages will go in the insecure channel every now and then. If I'm a smart one, can I look at it and figure out what is the user's name? Is the username directly seen in the traffic as in the packet that you are showing, that you are sending? If yes, then it's a bad protocol. User's identity must be kept secret. So if I do that, then user anonymity is preserved. And if user can move around, can I trace his movement? Can I say that at this point the user was here at X location, at another point it was Y location with confidence? If yes, he is traceable. She is traceable. If not, she is untraceable. So untraceability is a good feature. You can understand that if somebody is anonymous, then she is untraceable. But if somebody is traceable, untraceable, that does not mean that person is anonymous. So there are things. Now, as I said, that these approaches had a number of problems, and then we talked about some solutions, but that solution we will not talk about right now. We'll rather go to a little different thing. What is the primary difference between sensor nodes and IoT devices? IoT devices are much more complex and expensive than a typical WSN sensor. So an adversary can extract authentication credentials from a physically captured smart device and can plug these credentials into a device of his or her choice. Now, as I said, assume that, I mean, there in authentication, there could be one-factor authentication. I give my password. If the password matches with my already given password, I authenticate. I am authenticated. Now, understandably, there are so many attacks by which passwords can be understood, passwords can be created, passwords can be fabricated. That those attacks, if done, privileged insider attack. I'm from a system and I'm telling you that Sumiran's password is this. So there are many attacks which this password alone cannot survive. So then came two-factor authentication schemes. also give them something, give one more factor in the authentication space. What is that? Maybe the smart card. But the smart card may be stolen. And as I said, the stolen smart card's credentials can be found out by power analysis. And then the smart card can be, those credentials can be put in another smart card, and they can use it, and therefore the smart card can be forged. So then came three-factor authentication schemes where I mean, a password is one, what you have, a smart card is one, and what you are, a biometric, data, maybe fingerprint, maybe retinal scan, that it becomes the third factor here. So whenever I authenticate, I mean, I have to be authenticated. I give my ID, I give my password, and I give my biometric maybe fingerprint I give. If all these three are matched, then I am authenticated. Now, biometric key has a problem. All of us know. It depends. I mean, the fingerprint I give using a particular, machine, maybe another machine, maybe another. It may depend on noise. It may depend on environment. So biometric keys for the same person, the exact biometric, I mean, the exact image even may not match. So there are lots of studies in it, and there is a standard solution to this problem nowadays, which is known as fuzzy extractor. So what is fuzzy extractor? We'll come to that. Just before that, I mean, there are certain good things about biometric keys which we understood. Difficult to copy, not lost. You cannot lose your biometric key. It's very difficult to guess it easily as well. So they are more secure than bad passwords, and they have some theoretically justifiable security. And on biometry, except in cinemas and except in very, very atypical situations, biometry cannot be stolen, right? What is fuzzy extractor? See, this solution was discussed first in Eurocrypt, presented first in Eurocrypt 2004. So they have two functions. Some of the mathematics of this function, I'm not going into that. But if you give a biometric data like fingerprint to a function called gen, it gives you two strings. One is alpha, a unique string, and the second one is a beta, which is called an auxiliary string or a reproduction parameter string. Now, next time, see, the red fingerprint is the fingerprint with which the original fingerprint is trying to be matched. Now they will not match really, and so what I do, I have a rep function, reproduce function, to which I give the fingerprint as well as beta, and then that gives back me the alpha that I originally got. Now naturally, that there will be certain differences between these strings, and the difference must be in a tolerable limit. The calculation of these differences are done by several parameters, including having distance. So point is, the distance is measured, and the distance must be less than some tau, some limit. So using that tau, more or less, this fuzzy extractor works very fine with given gen and rep functions. These functions are available nowadays for fingerprints, for several standard biometric data, and one can use them as such. They work very well. So these alpha beta strings are very important to us while you go forward. So you need to remember these strings, alpha beta. Next, we leave the part of access control a bit, and you go to authentication a bit, and you go to access control. Now you learned a lot about different access control schemes in your earlier days, and of course I understand that you have gone through security FDPs quite some time. I mean, I do not know how many of you are doing it repetitively, but I've seen that MAKAUT is hosting several FDPs on security, and for that matter, this role-based access control was also talked about by Professor Nyogi, which is very common. Whenever we go for data security, this is common. Now, so every user here has a role. So for example is giving all teachers access to Google. Now this may be a role. I mean, maybe all teachers get access to Google, but may not be, all students may not get an access to Google. So depending on the role of the user, I control the access. Now this access is to a complete application, right? So there are two ways to make it more fine-grained. Maybe we can give it, we can do it a little more fine-grained, maybe giving teachers access to Google, not all teachers. If they are teaching grade Y, and maybe if they are in certain schools. So, or maybe you can say that we give access to teachers as well as students who study in class 10, class 12, like that. So more point is the role, depending on the role, we can have a good amount of a complex clause by which I restrict the access or control the access to data items or applications. So this actually turns out to be I mean, this generalization of this role-based access control will give rise to the one teacher, student, clerk, operations, operation officer, and things like that. And there could be attributes associated with the application of the data as well. And there could be environmental conditions also. For example, we allow access to only those users whose types are employees in the department HR. And where can they access? HR system or payroll system, and when? Only during busy environmental conditions. Only during business hours, in case the time zone is the same as the company. It's a very complex kind of a predicate, depending on the attributes, I say, and that attribute, if you have that attribute, if that attribute, I mean, as a user, and the data on which you are, at which you are looking at a particular environment, if these attributes at that point of time matches with these attributes, then you have an access. Now, first of all, how this condition can be expressed in a formal manner by something like an expression tree. Yes, this access structure that you will be building is nothing but an expression tree. So if you belong to army, and if you belong to general, and if you are doing operation X, operation, I mean, any two of these 5 operations, then you can see I can make a ANDOR kind of a tree out of it. And that tree will be basically the access structure. Now this access structure is, now how can I give a fine-grained access control? Who will check whether the person requesting for access, the data being requested, and the environment in which it is being accessed, all those match with the given policy? This is a policy. This access structure is a policy. Does this match with this policy? Now somebody has to do that, right? So I can have a server doing that. If I do that, two things might happen. The server will be a single point of failure, and the server, if I compromise the server, then I get the entire data. So access control goes for a miss. Second thing is third party. I mean, if I am a third party, how do I look at the access? How do I look at the data? I cannot. So in 2006-07 time frame, two nice encryption, now nice schemes came into, were discovered. One of them is called Key Policy Attribute Based Encryption Scheme, ABE, Attribute Based Encryption, ABE. key policy AP, ciphertext policy CP ABE scheme, attribute based encryption scheme. Now, what is KP ABE? Now, let's take a simple example. Let's take log data. Data are being logged, and that has attributes like the user of the data and time of the user action, type of data, modified or accessed, things like that, and a plethora of that. Now, the structure could, the policy could be, if the username is Bob, or the date is between October 4 and October 7, and the data accessed pertain to naval operations off the coast of North Korea, then the access can be given. So the policy or the structure is the second bullet, second sub-bullet of the first bullet. Right? Now, to go into the detail of this KPABE, you have to know what is known as bilinear group and bilinear pairing. And not only that, you need to know about Lagrange coefficients also. If you know them, then we'll find out that there I can have a number of public properties and a master key, and I encrypt a message with the public properties and the set of all attributes. For example, not all attributes. I say that these are the attributes who can look at the data. Now, then whoever will be trying to decrypt this data need a key, right? They need a key. The key has to be generated. Now, when the key is generated, the access policy is built inside the key. So the key that I give for decryption contains the access structure, and then that we using that key, a given ciphertext can be decrypted, deciphered. So there are three procedures. One is encryption, one is key generation, and the last one, the user decrypt. Who will generate the key? There will be servers to generate the key depending on the attributes. Now, what does that key contain? The content essentially has an access structure or an access tree inside it. If I'm a user and I'm looking at a particular data, so how do I know what are the attributes of the data? The message has it. The MK and the PK, they have that. Now, therefore, the master key and the public properties have that. Now, if I have certain attributes, then the access structure is a tree which will give me a result, Boolean result, 1 or 0. If it gives me a 0, it gives me a result 1. That means I am, with my attributes as a user and the data attributes that are there, I can look at that data. Right? So a little complex process this is, but this is a very interesting development that happened, and a lot of research work was done on this particular attribute based encryption schemes since 2007. Now, the ciphertext, if you look at the KPABE to CPABE, now what does the encryptor does? Encryptor actually encrypts, and the encryptor does not know the access structure, the policy which will be used to access this data. Now, who knows that? The key generator knows that. So therefore, the encryptor is not intelligent. Who is intelligent? The key generator is the intelligent. Now, in CPABE, we have made it the reverse. The key encryptor has the intelligence, and the key generator does not have that intelligence. Naturally, the mechanisms vary. Mechanisms are not I would say not nearby. They are the mathematical framework that they use, both of them are bilinear group and bilinear pairing, but the details vary. Details vary a lot, and with this key we can do the CPAB, and so that's a small treatise on. So there are a number of access control approaches that we have already seen in coming in being. Some of them used KPABE, some of them used CPABE, some of them used multi-authority KPABE, some of them used KPAB for WSN. Some of them used KPAB for IoT environment, but nonetheless they had some problems. Some were vulnerable to known attacks. Some did not support fine-grained access control. Multi-attribute authorities were not supported by some of them. Some of them did not establish session key. So they could not go in sync with the authentication mechanism also. So therefore, the scope to go in this direction is plenty as of now, and one can try to do research work there. Having said that, just a small brief on how to assume that you have generated a security protocol for a particular situation. So you have told that these are the different phases or different phases of the algorithm. I have to log in, I have to authenticate, I have to revoke the password, I have to revoke the smart card. So these are the different activities that I need to do, scenarios that I need to do. And in each one of these scenarios, take these steps one by one. If you do this, take these steps, then this gives rise to a secure protocol over an insecure channel. Question is, when you do that, how do you validate that whatever you claimed is correct? One is informal security analysis, which everybody does. The informal security analysis is good, but it has failures. Frankly speaking, there are umpteen number of situations where papers in several good journals, good conferences, apparently solving a security problem for a given situation is turned down by another researcher in 6 months to 18 months time frame, showing that there is an attack. And once that's called cryptanalysis. So beyond, after that cryptanalysis is done, some researchers, maybe them who found it only, they come out with another solution, some modification, so that that particular attack is prevented, is resisted. Now this is very common, and the more you do informal security analysis, these problems may come up, and people probably will not value your protocol so much if you just do security validation in an informal manner. So there are certain formal approaches. Some are simulation-based, simulation-centric. Some are formal, model-based. So we have two simulation-based situations. One is Avispa and the other is ProVerif. In both of them, you can submit your protocol description in particular language, and they will check for certain types of attacks, resistance to certain types of attacks. They are not foolproof, but at least they do something like testing of a program. And therefore, even if they are not foolproof, they test your scheme a lot, and therefore chances of a fallacy being caught by these simulations is very high. So, and then there are formal security verifications. Ban logic is used for proving random Oracle query and real or random model. So all of them are some sorts of formal. So you have to prove theorems there. You have to work in that, and you have to in certain cases you have to you have certain primitives like queries, random queries you have, and the answers to that are given by your by the system, things like that. So whenever you build a security protocol, you have to make sure that you use as many as possible. ProVerif and Avispa are kind of same, so you can use one of them. But then beyond that, ban real or random model, random oracle, all of them. You try with all of them. Basically, describe your protocol using the language of these particular tools, and then check whether they report any sort of attack or not. If they do not report any sort of attack, it is not proved. It is not really proved that your scheme is attack-free, but it certainly gives you a good confidence, and the confidence to the reviewers as well as the users as well, that this scheme may win the test of time, right? So So this, I mean, you have to use this tool. So I cannot go into the details. I have the details, but I cannot go into the details right now because I have to go to some examples of solutions as well. So the first solution that we'll be talking about is anonymous user authentication, three-factor. So therefore, I use fuzzy extractor, and then it is said to be useful for Internet of Things. And when I say Internet of Things, you think about smart devices. Now, in this particular solution, we do not have smart devices. We have the smart devices putting all their data in a particular server. And the data in that server is to be protected, and therefore the authentication has to be built between the user and that particular server. So that is the way we bypassed the device. Is it good? No, it's not good. So I'll show you one more example, one more paper in which we have not done that. We have actually kept the device in its own place, and we actually did the communication between the user and the device, not between the user and the server. Although the server came in between at the time of login authentication and things like that, but after that, after the session key is prepared, the message communication will be was done by the device and between the device and the user. Now, the first one is not that, as I said. The first one is between a server in which the devices put their data on. So we call it a crowdsourcing of data by the sensors in a not very I would say not very correct way. It's not very correct. I mean, crowdsourcing really doesn't mean that. Anyway, so that's what the situation is. And what we are targeting, however, we are targeting an efficient mechanism and a robust mechanism, and we somehow were bent to use chaotic map. Somehow we are bent to use chaotic map in our approach, primarily because there are many situations where chaotic map was used, and they were not seen to be vulnerable, resistant to all the attacks. They are vulnerable to certain attacks. And of course, one motivation was definitely the protocol must be having lower computation and communication costs than the state-of-the-art algorithms or protocols that we have at that point of time. It was in 2018. Now, why three-factor authentication? We discussed it already. Three-factor gives me more power. Basically, resistant to several attacks, resistant to privilege comes by that. Now, why chaotic map is used? I mean, Chebyshev map is used basically. Chebyshev polynomials are used. The primary, I mean, see, if I use a public key cryptographic primitive like ECC, that's the best. Then what is the problem? The problem is 63.08. That's the execution time. So time is not a problem, but the power, etc., that comes with time is a problem. Now, Chebyshev map operations are 3 times less than that, and therefore we call it a lightweight thing. So in our authentication protocol, what are the things that we are using? Chebyshev ones, hash, SHA hash functions a lot, and XOR hash functions, and Chebyshev. So I said, I mean, why did we go for a new protocol? We were bent on using some chaotic map-based user authentication scheme. Now, this existing literature does not have such a scheme which is resistant to many of the attacks. And we also wanted to check temporary information leakage, which we'll come to that later. Yeah, one more thing is that we said we will give you a method to revoke a lost smart card. Sorry. My God. Just a minute, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Just a minute, sorry.
Yes.
You can see that, right? Back.
Yes, yes, it's visible.
Yeah. So this ESL attack is something like session key preservation. Ephemeral information is a temporary information, which is the temporary random numbers that you use, the state of the system actually at different points of time. So this is naturally this is, but we work with DY attack model only in this paper, not with CK model. So yeah, so there are 4 phases in this protocol, out of which we'll talk about only 2. One is registration phase, the second one is login phase, the third one is authentication and key establishment phase. We'll talk about these 3. In each one of them, the underlying entities are user UI, which with the SC. SC is not a different entity. UI and SC are tagged together, and the server. So SC is not a different entity. UI has the SC. So at the registration phase, UI gets the SC, the smart card from the server S. In the login phase, the UI is allowed to send login request to the message. Sends a login message, and then when it is authenticated, then a shared session key is established between the server and the UI. We'll go up to that only. Now, of course, we have 2 more features in our algorithm, in our protocol. We can change the password and the biometric. For that, we have a protocol, a series of steps. And similarly, if the smart card is lost, then you should be able to revoke it. For that, we have a series of steps, which we will not be discussing in this particular lecture. Now, many of you might be familiar with such a description of the algorithms or the protocols. Now, when you do registration, what is done is the user enters his or her ID and the password and the biometric BI. And you see the user also uses a random number B. And this random number B is used, is written where? In the login phase, registration phase. So it is a long-term key. It is a long-term constant, right? But it's a random number. So user to user, this random number will be different. Now, we first generate the alpha and the beta by our famous generate, the fuzzy extractor that we talked about. Use your fuzzy extractor, use it, invoke it on the biometric that you supplied, and you get two parameters, alpha, unique string, beta, reproduction parameter. So what you now do, you hash IDA and PW with alpha I and make it a hash again, and basically hash it with C. Now you see that the ID and this C and this C, they are sent to the server. Now, if you remember, I said that identity of a user cannot be sent through a channel in which adversary is looking at. Now, therefore, this channel has to be secure channel. This is one of a kind. One user will register once, but one user will use this system a number of times, thousands of times. So therefore, this channel is secure channel. Right? Now, what this is the masked password. See, the ID and the password is masked, and this C masks it with a B, with this random number. We'll see how they are used. They are used in a very interesting manner. I mean, it's not like I'm putting H. I mean, we are putting H here and there, sprinkling some H, some hash function here and there, and getting the mask. That's not the case. Two things you must understand. Every time you use a hash function, the time complexity of your protocol will go up. And you do not hash it, you are not protecting it. Why do I hash it? Protect it. Because if I hash it, the original message is not visible, a digest is visible. So if I use H profligately, then my time complexity will be rising. My computation overhead will be increasing. So that's a check. I cannot go on sprinkling H everywhere. I have to use H in a very optimized manner so that I beat the competition in terms of my overhead on computation and communication. Now here it generates a smart card. First of all, look at this MK and this R. This R and MK are from the server, right? And they are long-term keys, long-term random numbers, long-term keys, long-term, constants. Now with that ID, with that R, it masks both ID and MK, and then they are XORed, and I get a message D1. So D1 and TMK. See, MK is the secret key for the server, should not be known as in a direct manner to the user. Similarly, we'll find out later on, user has a similar, this T is Chebyshev polynomial. Chebyshev polynomial with the parameter MK, and I mean with the parameter MK and X, right? Now, so a smart card is produced with D1 and TMKX, and then this is sent to the user. The user gets D1 and TMKX. Then it stores D2. Smart card already has D1, TMK. Now, on top of that, I am storing D2. I am storing FI, which is again the RPW is masked by B, and I store it. The hash function, gen function, prep function, and the tau, the threshold tolerance between the real fingerprint and the given fingerprint, the threshold tolerance which I accept is given into the smart card. The smart card contains so much information. If the smart card is stolen, all this information can be understood, can be revealed to my adversary, right? So I cannot put anything and everything in the smart card. We'll talk about it. That remember, I mean, we'll again remind you what was stored in the smart card and why. By getting the smart card, the adversary cannot get a number of important parameters without which the session key cannot be built. So this is the user registration that I have done, and then the login and authentication. I have done it in 2 pages. First of all, you see that user inputs ID, PWI, and a new biometric, right? Now I have to first check whether this biometric, this ID, and this PW, they are correct or not. Are they the one that are already stored in my smart card in some manner? So therefore, if you remember, my smart card contains D2 that it's containing this D2. You see, this D2 contains this D2. It contains this F as well. So it contains the D2. So on D2, if I XOR the new ID, I mean H of this IDI PWI with alpha I, then I get a B dash, and I check whether this B dash is the original B or not. How do I check that? I do a masking of the RPW with B dash, and I check that this F was masking of RPW with original B, and now it is masking of RPW with B dash. Are they the same? If they are the same, then this user is the same user as with the ID that the smart card owner and the user that is holding the smart card, now they are the same. Now there are 2 random numbers that I generate here as a user, U and RNU, and I compute a Chebyshev map here, TUX, and I already got TMKX, right? So I do a KA, which is basically TMKX on top of the TU, and I prepare 2 messages, M1 and MU. Now you may be astonished to see that this MU, when it goes to the server, it gives the server basically RNU. Can you tell me? I mean, can you find out why? This MU contains it's a map of IDI, X, KA, RNU, TS1, right? Now this KA is what? TMK, TU, or TMK? Now TU is given. TU is sent to the server. Now the server knows TMK, right? Server knows this function TMK. It does apply that function on TUX, TMK TU and TU TMK are the same thing. So K dash becomes KA. I got KA now. Now, if you remember this DIDI, what is this DIDI? DIDI is this IDI XOR HK, So basically using XOR and so you do this manipulation a little cleverly, then you'll find out that this from this M1, the server is getting RNU. From this M1, the server is getting this RNU. And similarly, this MU that it is getting, you'll find out that from this MU also it will do something. So it also generates an RNS and computes a new message again for sending. So it sends M4 MS TS2. Basically, again, if you look at it, it's already generated the shared key, but the shared key is not transmitted just like that. It has to be masked. So it is masked with several things. So M2 is nothing but, what was M2? M2 was, we have checked, M2 is RNU. So M2 is RNU. This is RNS. This is TS1, the timestamp of either the user, TS2, the timestamp of the server. Now, this RNS is also sent in a particular manner. I'm very sure. M4 contains RNS and TS2 and X dash. So this is also given and TS2 is given. Now every time TS2, this TS2 is given. Similarly, if you look at TS1 was given. Why? To check that the timestamp at which these messages are being created, transmitted, and the time at which it is obtained, that time gap should be very small, should be within a threshold. Otherwise, it is basically an adversary who got somehow this particular message, this particular keys, and that adversary is trying to send the old key in another session. So the session sanctity of the session is preserved or not. That's the question, and this will answer that. TS2 specified by the server and the current timestamp that I get, the difference between those two must be within a particular threshold, which is delta T. Now again, your task is basically this SK, everything X dash should match with X dash should be ID, everything. This K should be this SX would be X dash, K should be K dash, TS1 is okay, TS2 is okay. This M2 should be RNU, and this M5 should be RNS. So that's how the protocol has to be created. You cannot send this RNS directly. You have to mask it in a manner that it cannot be, even if it is this M5 is captured, this RNS cannot be seen. Even if this M2 is captured, RNU cannot be seen. So so we are using basically RNU and RNS, RNU and RNS. M2 is RNU and M5 is RNS. So you can check SKSU and SKUS are the same thing. X is X dash, K dash is K, K dash is K because of Chebyshev's property. TS1, TS2 are the same. RNU is nothing but M2 and RNS is nothing but M5. So your system has to be built in such a manner that these random numbers are sent back and forth. U is giving its random number to server in a very cryptic manner, in a very masked manner, so that with the available random numbers that the server has, it can find out this number. But it is not stored anywhere. It is not stored anywhere in the server. Similarly, the RNS that comes here is not stored anywhere. It is used as the this is my shared key, and the shared key is used to communicate in that particular session. I hope that I could brief you on the principles of protocol solution. And therefore, I told you that I will show you one thing. I mean, stolen smart card attack. So what is stored in the smart card? If I remind you, D1, D2, FI, H dot, gen dot, rep dot. And if you look at D1, this was D1. This was D2. ID is the ID of the user. MK is the master key of the server. PWI is the password of the user. B is the random number at the user. Alpha I is the biometric output of the gen function from the original biometric, right? And D2 is things like that. Now, point is, IDI, PWI, biometric secret key, alpha I, they are not stored in the smart card. Now, using this H, I cannot get any one of them, ID, password, biometric secret key, any one of them. And why, if you ask me, I mean, I know the H. I mean, you can tell me I know the H. Why not? Because H is a one-way function and it has a collision resistant property. Even if you have Hx equal to Hy, it doesn't say that X equal to Y. In fact, the chance of X is equal to Y is very less. So that's the property of the hash function. And we are believing in that property and we are working on that. Right? Now, similarly, now naturally, if ID cannot be found out, then anonymity is preserved, right? And if you look at the shared key, I showed you the shared key anatomy. You see, one is X dash, but X dash is produced in a manner that X dash and X are the same. So both of them are the same thing. M2 is nothing but RNU, and M5 is nothing but RNS. And look at these messages from the server: DI, DITU, X, M1, M from M1. I think it's M2. From M2, you get that RNU. So from these messages, you have to get, the server has to generate this RNU, right? And similarly, from these messages, the user has to generate the RNS, right? So only then that they can do. And since they can do, so therefore, I mean, as a server obtains RNU, URNU from M1, and RNS user obtains from M5. So shared key is kept secret because these shared keys basically depend on local and ephemeral, I mean temporary random numbers which are constants and which cannot be known to my adversary because I am working on DUI model, attack model. I know I'm not working on CKO attack model, I'm working on DUI model. So so what next? Make the protocol secure under a CK adversary model, because the protocol that we have already talked about was just DUI. Now make it secure under CK adversary model. Then direct communication between user and smart devices. In this proposal, user did not talk to the smart devices, they talked to the server, and the server was, housing all the data from several thousand IoT devices. And then we did that, but we did not deploy the scheme in any real network. Forget about a real network. We did not deploy them in a simulated network and found out the performance of that network. I mean, how is the throughput? How is the throughput then? How is the latency? How the latency grows? How the end-to-end delay grows? Those are the questions that we have in our mind, because we are basically writing a protocol, and then the protocol must have its effect on these two parameters, at least the throughput as well as the end-to-end delay. So we could not see all that in our proposal, which we just talked about. So therefore, we need to go to the next slide, next paper, which is again user authentication for IoT only. But these are our motivations. We want to do all this in this particular solution framework. So here, if you remember the diagram for communication and trust, we had the user and the GWN, and then the smart device. The GWN talks with the smart device and the user in a very trusted manner and makes the trust, available to ID J and SDJ. IDI and SDJ. So how does it do that? So we'll talk about three phases here. One is device registration phase, one is user registration phase, and the third one is a login and authentication phase. So device registration phase is pretty simple. One device tells the GWN that I want to get registered, and the device generates a random number RJ and then calculates the long-term key J, masks the LTS, the long-term secret that we have. And then this IDJ and LTKJ are loaded into the smart device SDJ's memory before it is deployed in the IoT framework. And this ID, this smart device's ID is listed as available now. Now, in the user registration phase, the user enters an ID, generates a random number, computes RIDI, and this RIDI is given to the gateway in a secure channel. Remember that in registration phase, allowing communication in secure channel is accepted by people because it is one of a kind. But beyond registration, using secure channel is not acceptable, is not allowed to us. So this now here we are using, other than the hash function and XOR, we're using AES, a particular version of that CBC version of that, which needs a key. AES needs a key, and CBC version needs an initialization vector. So we do that. So when I get that RID, and this X is nothing but the transaction, the timestamp, the current timestamp. So that current timestamp is put in the the RID and the current timestamp. They are that's the message, and I apply AES on that using LTS as the key, and I get EIDI, and this EIDI, LTKI, and the device list are put in the smart card, and I supply that to the user. The user does two things. User enters the password, already entered the ID, enters the bio information as well. Then these two are alpha beta, basically nothing but alpha beta. The gen function returns two parameters, alpha beta you can assume, and then we are doing again similarly a number of XOR and hash so that we can mask the necessary information correctly, as well as we do not unnecessarily use hash profligately, so that the time complexity increases. Now we put certain things into the smart card, a lot of them, and then that's the end of the registration phase. Then in login authentication phase is quite detailed. I guess this detail will not be adding value now, so let me skip these details here. So point is, here we have shown that using the this xi is built from small xi, which is a short-term key from the user, and this y is a short-term, is a random number, is a short-term secret which we obtained, I guess, from the smart device. So if you look at the major things, first of all, we see that first stage here is between the user UI and the GWN. So this is UI to GWN, all this, right? And then the second phase is between GWN to smart device, IDJ, right? And then here from smart device to the user, right? So these are the 3 and 4. So these are the send. See the last line, you see send the message to the UI, and UI on receiving that message does a lot of things, and they communicate each other. So here the GWN is no longer relevant once the session key establishment is done. So that's what we have done here, that we got rid of the GWN once the session is established. Now, if you look at it, this Y is a secret from the device. So there are two things which we have, Xi and Y. They are used to mask the basic key, right? So they are short-term secrets, and to derive a key in a computationally efficient manner, adversary must capture both the short-term and the long-term keys. You cannot just capture Xi and small xi and Y. No, then you cannot get the shared key. You have to capture the LTKI and RIDI as well. Then only you will get it. So I told you that in Cia adversary model, you can get the session state, that is the sessions random number, sessions fixed variables, secrets, but you cannot get both of them together. I can put the long-term keys in a kind of a vault, which is kept in a more protected manner. So unless and until you got both of them, you cannot get the secret key that I have. So therefore, this is Cia adversary compliance. And now we did a simulation using this in NS3. We put GWN, we put the smart devices, we put the users in a particular range. The sensing devices range was 50 meters, and the range of GWN is to 200 meters. The users were randomly moving in 150 square meter. Only thing that we did not do, the communication was done on 802.11.n, which is not IoT protocol, which is basically a WLAN protocol. So one should ideally have done LTE advanced, something like that. That communication should have been used to make it more realistic. But even with that, we had 7 scenarios to talk about. In one, number of users was 5, devices was 20. We're increasing the number of devices and the number of users. But in 6 and 7, we did a little tweaking. In 6, the number of users is 10, and in 7, number of users is 8. But number of devices in 7 is 50, while the number of devices in 6 is 35. Mobility model was chosen as random mobility model, and simulation time allowed was 1200 seconds. That is roughly 20 minutes. Now the throughput in this, we found out that the throughput actually increases as we increase the number of users and the number of devices quite reasonably. Actually, you have more users, more devices, more data. You are basically putting into the system. Now, probably we should have done a little more. We should have gone to some more users, some more devices, and check when the congestion sets in, and where do I get a pack in that situation. That was increasing, congestion increasing, end-to-end delay was increasing, while throughput increasing, end-to-end delay was also increasing. So this is a huge task. I mean, if you really want to implement a protocol in a test bed, and you can show that the protocol runs well in a realistic manner, then that will be a huge contribution to this body of knowledge. So far, these are only on paper and pencil. People using them are less available, and therefore that would be a very interesting and important task to take. Now, with that, what could be next? I remind you that I said that IoT devices are more complex and expensive, and only the point here I want to make is IoT devices can have replaceable subsystems. Now, credentials from one system can be utilized to compromise the. I mean, what I can do, the credentials can be in one subsystem, and other parts of the device can be in another subsystem. So the credentials I can steal and I can put it another IoT device in the submodule, right? And then this forged device will act like the stolen device, right? And then our protocol will actually fall through. Now, what you need now is why did I use biometry in my three-factor authentication? Because I wanted to have an answer to the question, who are you? Who are you can be best answered by biometric data. Maybe retinal scan, maybe fingerprint. If the fingerprint matches, most likely it is you. Similarly, who is this device? Is this the same device as before, or is it a device where some module has been replaced? That's a question that I need to ask. So for that, we need to employ some sort of device biometric. And what would be a device biometric? We have a concept called physically unclonable functions to support such functionality. That will give me a new solution, which was the result paper, I guess, in this series, right? So we are not talking about that now today. We have done what I have done. I actually promised to deliver a lecture for an hour because of my problem in my throat. Fortunately, my throat helped me today, and I could talk so much. Now, I have done a bit of research on authentication in the last 5-6 years, courtesy my research scholars and my collaborators. I alone could not do them because I was, in fact, I'm an intruder to any field in which I work. I am, almost a something like the old proverb. Who knows something of many things, but doesn't know in detail anything. Master of what's that called? Master of what? And but there's a famous standard proverb for that. So I probably have become like that. But since my scholars are also very educated and now, and therefore they can help you. I have given you the names of the scholars. The email addresses can be any time you like to contact us. So we have done some research works on that and published some papers in the last 3-4 years. Maybe a couple is pending now, and so that's all from my side. And again, I want to thank you for your patience. How many of you are still there? I do not know. Am I alone talking? That also I do not know. Except Superman.
No, sir. There are so many participants.
Yes.
No, sir, not at all. Yeah.
I do not know that. And also, Sharmista had a question that whether whatever she said made sense to you or not. But I'm very sure that I did not make any sense at all. But that's out of that's a different question altogether. And I am stopping this sharing, and I cannot take many questions because most of the questions cannot be answered in a single yes, no, or simple small ways. But I can take questions, but maybe I have to tell you that these questions have a long answer. A small answer can be given at this point of time, which may excite you, and you may like to do more work in that area if you want to. The whole intention of mine was to invite you to this fascinating domain and kind of ignite your senses to actually go into the exploration of this in this rigorous manner. Although what we have done is not really very rigorous, at least in this semi-rigorous manner, you should be able to do all that. And if you look at the papers, then we'll find out that there are certain proofs. Proofs will look formidable at the very beginning, but once you are into it, you'll find out a method in the madness. You'll find out that the proofs are similar, the framework is the given, so they are not that scary as you probably see if you see it for the first time.
Sir, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, sir, Dr. Soikat Basu.
Is this Soikat, Dr.
Yeah,
Soikat from
yeah.
our
Yes,
department?
sir. One of the
Yes, sir.
coordinators of this program, and as well
Yes.
as from our computer science and
Yeah.
engineering department.
Yeah.
He is from the very
Yeah.
beginning in this program today. So I
Sir,
would
since
like
you
to,
are there, yeah.
yeah, I would
Sir,
like
you are
to,
there, so and you have very you have make them understand very well, and still so many attendees are there, and throughout the time, all around more than 50 participants were there. Sir, thank you very
That's the
much
amplitude,
for,
right?
and
That's
you
the
have come
amplitude.
here.
yes.
That's the amplitude of a sinusoidal
No,
variation,
but
isn't it?
no, but somebody, I know that one, they are listening very carefully, and I hope so they will be interested doing research also in this area. Oh, and you have taught totally very good, just like that. We have
Yes.
also learned from you so many things.
With the
Thank you
help
very
of my
much, sir.
scholars and the collaborator. I'm retiring.
You know.
Yeah.
So when you are retiring, sir? No, you have so many years to
I've done
live.
my bit. I've
No,
done
no.
my bit. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir,
Yes.
and thank you very much.
Any questions, Suparna? Any questions that you have
Yes,
that I
sir.
can
Yes, sir.
answer?
There are questions in the question and answer box. I will read it out for you, sir. So, how IoT security can be used in distributed nonlinear control system, posted by Shantanu Bhadra.
Distributed nonlinear control system.
Yes.
I mean, if I get the question right, the question probably is, are these protocols or are these methodologies or are these frameworks applicable to distributed control systems? I mean, I think that's the question. Now, if that is the question, then let me tell you that IoT, all these schemes actually stem out from distributed systems only. They have origins in distributed systems, then the specifics of IoTs came in. So if you look at the original papers of secured protocols, then you will land up into distributed systems only. And your distributed control systems are nothing but distributed systems, if I'm not wrong. Only thing is, nowadays, these controls are done from a very long distance. That's true. I understand that the control is no longer inside the chip or at a very local position. I think that's what you wanted to mean. So my answer to that would be, maybe you have to find out what are the characteristics that are unique to a solution that you have to propose. After all, the controller, the controller being forced, the controller doing malicious stuff is not uncommon. It's not uncommon in these days. I mean, particularly when the controllers are controlled very remotely, and the controllers are controlling things also remotely. The controllers are not inbuilt with the device nowadays, right? So the peculiarities of the problem domain you have to analyze, and then the solution for that will have to be obtained. Now, everything will not be doable from a cryptographic point of view. That's a no-no. So you have to build a system in which cryptography will play a role. That's what my conjecture to a possible application area. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, how data ambiguity is handled here by Joydeep Mukherjee.
No, I mean, what exactly he meant by data ambiguity? I mean, we are considering only. So does it mean that the devices are sending spurious data and all? I mean, is that the case? I mean, we cannot handle that. I mean, that's an algo. We can only handle here with whatever data is being sent by a legitimate device. That data is being sent in a secured manner. Now, whether the data is ambiguous, whether the data is duplicate, that has to be sorted out by the algorithm which works on top of the secured protocol. A secured application will have to work on that. That's the specific, I would say, IoT application centric task.
Okay, sir, I think it is clear. So no more question, but obviously, if participants are interested, they can
You
send
can give
email.
my
Yeah.
email address. I mean, you know my email address. You can
Yes,
just
sir. Yes, sir. I will share in the chat box.
yes,
So if they are interested, they can send offline questions or queries or anything. Yeah.
of course.
So first of all, sir, a heartfelt thanks to you for
You're
this
welcome.
wonderful session. And today's back-to-back sessions, I think, are is a complete package. Like first session, it gave an horizontal overview and in some points vertical also. And in this session, sir has given us exposure to the budding researchers or interested researchers in this area with the giving exposure to the models available and how the implementation and simulation can be done, some viewpoints on the data collection or the data collection environment and the simulation environment, so that some implementation touch is also given to that particular problem. So it ignites, I think, the researchers' minds if someone is interested to work in this relevant area. So thank you once again very much, sir, on behalf of the organizing committee
You're
and
welcome. I
also
mean,
from.
thanks to the audience for their patient hearing as well. And
Yes, sir.
yeah, I mean, this is a problem. I mean, we cannot take direct questions while we talk
Yes,
and
yes,
things like that. So
yes. In the virtual platform, that is
that's
a
something I miss because
limitation.
uh,
That is a
that
limitation,
is
sir.
required. Yeah, but anyway. I mean, whatever is available, we can do that now. Once the
And
situation is normalized, we can.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will look forward to for
Thank you.
such
Thank you very much.
events in future. And thanks to Dr. Basu for being with us and all
Thank
the
you, sir. Thank you,
participants
madam. Yeah.
and webinar team for their extensive support for smooth execution of these programs. So thank you, sir. Thank you once again for your wonderful talk. So thanks all.